Chapter 421. Soon, Su Xing hurried over. He respectfully bowed. Subordinate greets master. Qin Yu lightly said, I have something for you to do. A month later, Tuba returned to the Black Demon sect with a travel-worn face. He handed a storage ring to Qin Yu. From what he said, it seemed that there were people secretly paying attention to the various materials on the list. Luckily for him, Qin Yu had reminded him and he had stopped buying them. It was only after he was tens of thousands of miles away that he quietly finished. You've done well. You've worked hard. You can rest well after this. Yes, Your Highness. Qin Yu watched Tuba leave. He inspected the materials in the storage ring, a satisfied expression on his face. Unfortunately, it wasn't easy to obtain the soul and blood of high-level monster beasts, otherwise it would have been even more perfect if Tuba had bought them all. Qin Yu shook his head and put away the storage ring. He stood up and walked deeper into the hall. Since all the materials had been gathered, he could begin refining them. Several days later, Qin Yu looked at the purple-back blue-wing ants in front of him. He could feel the powerful aura they emitted and his eyes lit up with joy. These were truly worthy of being the pills recorded in the monster-raising mystic art. They were specially used to cultivate the foundation of monster beasts. After using them, the aura of the purple-back blue-wing ants was at least twice as strong as before. There were still many pills that could be used later, but the increase wouldn't be as great. With a thought, all the purple-back blue-wing ants flew into the Imperial Spirit Bag under the lead of the Ant King. Qin Yu looked down. His Imperial Spirit Bag was a bit outdated. If he had a chance in the future, he would need to find a high-level Imperial Spirit Magic tool. This would be more beneficial to the growth of the purple-back blue-wing ants. He placed the cultivating pills into the Imperial Spirit Bag and ordered the Ant King to swallow them as needed. Before he found the soul and blood of high-level monster beasts, this matter would come to an end. Qin Yu thought for a moment and then walked towards the alchemy room. Recently, there had been an endless stream of cultivators coming to the Black Demon sect to trade spirit plants, and they had found many precious seeds. There weren't many pills left for Tuba and Tutu, so he needed to refine another batch to replenish them. Time passed a day at a time. Grandmaster Yao's purchasing operation didn't seem to stop at all. The vast majority of the Black Demon sect spirit plant materials were taken away by him. Unknowingly, this touched upon the interests of some people. For instance, in the alchemy division, Grandmaster Jiang Taisho was ranked third. In the Black Demon sect, he was the only alchemy grandmaster that dabbled in spirit plant alchemy. Most of the spirit plants that were purchased in the past ended up in his hands. Compared to demonic path pills, pills refined from spirit plants might have a slightly weaker medicinal efficacy, but their attributes were much milder. Moreover, there were fewer side effects, so they could be sold for a decent price. Of course, Grandmaster Jiang only sold 30% of the spirit plant pills in the Black Demon sect. The rest was sold elsewhere through secret channels. Therefore, on the surface, Grandmaster Jiang didn't profit much from buying at a low price. However, only he knew how much he actually earned. Originally, Jiang Taisho didn't care much about Grandmaster Yao's sudden attack and sweeping away all the spirit plant materials in the market. Many people had tried to get a share of the pie from him, but in the end, they all ended up badly battered and bleeding. It was said that this surnamed Yao had a mysterious background, but so what? Spirit plant elixirs were not that easy to refine. But this time, things were unexpected. This was because as time passed, many spirit plants and pills began to appear in the exchange items that Grandmaster Yao paid. Grandmaster Jiang managed to obtain some. After inspecting the quality, his heart sank. These pills were of high quality. They were even much better than the ones he refined. Although he didn't know how the low-key and unremarkable Grandmaster Yao had suddenly transformed into such a formidable spirit plant alchemy master, Grand Master Jiang was well aware that if he continued to do as he pleased, this massive wealth would be completely taken away by others. Honorable Master, we cannot wait any longer. Please make a decision as soon as possible. An alchemy disciple anxiously said. Grand Master Jiang sucked in a deep breath. Grand Master Yao's status is different. Even if he is in the wrong here, I still need to give him some face. Purple Spring, take this old man's visiting card and request a meeting with Grandmaster Yao. Tell him that this matter should end here. His tone was light and confident. After his initial anger, Grandmaster Jiang soon composed himself. This was because he was the third-ranked Grandmaster of the Alchemy Division. As for the demonic path, the strong were always respected. After the disciple named Purple Spring took the visiting card, he confidently walked towards Grandmaster Yao's dwelling. But just as he expressed his intentions, before he could even think of a proper stance, he suddenly shivered. He looked up to see that the two originally warm and gentle fellows in front of him now had eyes as cold as the winter winds. Where did this disgraceful thing come from? You actually dare to pass on a message to my Grandmaster? Hurry up and scram, otherwise we brothers will send you on your way. Tuba viciously shouted. His fists were clenched so tightly that they emitted crackling sounds. Purple Spring was enraged. How insolent! I brought my Honorable Master's visiting card here to represent my Honorable Master's dignity. The third-ranked Grandmaster Jiang of the Alchemy Division is not someone that you two lowly servants can insult. Today, Grandmaster Yao must give my Honorable Master an explanation for this matter. Tutu diabolically grinned. He reached out a hand and grabbed the stomping Purple Spring. If it weren't for my Grandmaster's orders not to casually kill people, then I would have eaten 3 of you in a single bite. Scram out of my sight. With a slap, several teeth flew out. Purple Spring's barely handsome face immediately swelled up like a pig's head. Muddy, the lamp. Purple Spring covered his face and staggered away. Soon, this matter was like a hurricane that spread through the entire Black Demon sect at an astonishing speed. Grandmaster Yao's subordinate barbarians had attacked Grandmaster Jiang's disciple, and because of spirit plant materials, both sides had a conflict of interest. I already knew that Grandmaster Yao purchasing spirit plant materials at a high price would definitely make some people unhappy. Grandmaster Jiang, he is the third-ranked alchemy grandmaster of my Black Demon sect. Now that he has lost face, how could he possibly give up? I heard that Grandmaster Yao's status isn't ordinary. The various figures in the sect are quite tolerant of him. Rumors are just rumors. Grandmaster Jiang's strength is real. Grandmaster Yao might be in deep trouble this time. As the entire Black Demon sect was in an uproar, Qin Yu had just finished refining pills. As he heard Tutu and Tuba's nervous reports, he thought for a moment and lightly said, "It's fine. I already expected this. If anyone is dissatisfied with this, then feel free to jump out." There was only a year left until the grand event of the Demonic Path's Demon Ascension Gate. It had to be known that even though the Black Demon sect was one of the 13 direct descendant branches of the Demonic Path, not every cultivator in the sect had the qualifications to participate. He could take advantage of this chance to make a name for himself and also plan to obtain the qualifications to participate in the Demon Ascension Gate. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He actually looked forward to Grandmaster Jiang's revenge. Purple Spring's face was swollen. He knelt on the ground and wept bitterly. Those two barbarians clearly knew that this disciple brought your greeting card and yet they still dared to attack me so heavily. It's clear that they don't put Honorable Master in their eyes at all. It doesn't matter if a disciple is wronged, but Honorable Master's face cannot be allowed to be blasphemed in the least. In the Grand Hall, all the disciples were filled with anger. A tall youth stepped forwards and said, "Honorable Master, these two mere barbarians know your status, so how could they dare to be so insolent? In this disciple's opinion, this matter must have been secretly instigated by Grand Master Yao and they have ill intentions. That's right, it must be that surname Yao who had those two purposely cause Master to lose face. To step on Master's name and ascend the stage, that surname Yao sure has guts. We cannot forgive him so easily. Honorable Master, we must make them pay a sufficient price for this matter. In the seat of honor, Grand Master Jiang was expressionless. He lifted a hand and the entire grand hall immediately fell silent. He lightly said, in consideration of the fact that we are both alchemy grandmasters of the sect, there is a bit of camaraderie between us, so I didn't want to go too far. But since Grandmaster Yao doesn't want to give me any leeway, I have no choice but to suppress him. Grandmaster Jiang lifted a hand and took out a jade slip. Grandmaster Yao likes to purchase spirit plants, especially all sorts of precious spirit plant seeds, right? Then I will give him a chance to make a great harvest. Purple Spring, take this jade slip to the sect's internal affairs division and tell them that I will use this as a gambling stake to challenge Grandmaster Yao. Both sides will use their own methods to determine victory or defeat in alchemy. Grandmaster Jiang's eyes flashed with a cold light. He continued to say, moreover, tell the Internal Affairs Division that if I am lucky enough to win, I want Grandmaster Yao to agree to a condition of mine. From then on, he will never refine a single spirit plant pill for the rest of his life. Purple Spring was overjoyed. He received the jade slip with both hands and excitedly rushed out of the grand hall. Surname Yao, you dare to have your servant hit me? You're finished this time. Soon, under the purposeful propaganda of some people, news that Grandmaster Jiang had informed the Internal Affairs Division and challenged Grandmaster Yao to a gambling fight spread through the entire Black Demon sect at an astonishing speed. This caused the demonic cultivators that were paying attention to this matter to be shocked. If Grandmaster Jiang was able to counterattack so quickly, it was clear that he was truly enraged. Not long after, information about the gambling stake spread out from the Internal Affairs Division through unknown channels. 17 kinds of spirit plant seeds. This included the skyheart lotus, 9 nether grass, unnamed flower, and other rare and nearly extinct spirit plants. As for the rest, they were all treasures that could only be found through a stroke of luck. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that these 17 seeds were priceless. If they were exchanged for spirit stones, they would be worth at least 100 million spirit stones, or even 1 billion. Because they were far too rare, if someone wanted them, no matter how high the price was, they could only choose to accept it. The Black Demon sect's gambling fight rules stated that if the challenger lost, all of the gambling stake would belong to the challenged cultivator. And if the challenge lost, besides agreeing to the challenger's reasonable conditions, they would also have to pay half of the gambling stake to the challenger. In other words, if Grandmaster Yao lost, he wouldn't be able to refine spirit plant pills in the future. Moreover, he would have to pay a massive amount of spirit stones as compensation. As for why it didn't count, and how many benefits Grandmaster Yao would obtain if he won, facing the third-ranked master of the Black Demon sect, the legendary unfathomably deep Grandmaster Jiang, the chances of him winning were far, far too low. At the very least, the vast majority of Black Demon sect cultivators had similar thoughts. This also caused the Black Demon sect to open up an internal betting pool. The odds for Grandmaster Jiang was 10-1, and Grandmaster Yao's odds reached an astonishing 1-5. In an important area of the Black Demon sect, in a heavily guarded temple, several elders who were in charge of the sect's daily affairs were holding a regular meeting. Some people opposed and some people agreed. Although there were some arguments, the atmosphere was still good. Besides a personnel appointment that was temporarily set aside due to the fierce competition between both sides, over a dozen other topics were passed in an hour. That is all for today's topics. I'll have to trouble fellow elders. If there is nothing else, we will disperse. At the end of the long table, a brown-robed chief elder with spots all over his face smiled. An elder to the left said, "Chief, I have a matter to discuss. Today, there is a gambling fight occurring in the sect. The initiator is the alchemy room's Jiang Taisho, and the one being challenged is Yao Bin. The gambling stake is extremely high. Once victory and defeat are decided, the loser will suffer grievous losses. Do you think we should intervene?" The several other elders had calm expressions. It was clear they already knew of this matter. At this time, a curious light shined in their eyes. Jiang Taisho was formidable. Although he was only ranked third in the sect in alchemy, they all knew that this was because he was hiding his true strength. This person's true alchemy skills were formidable. He had refined 7th-grade pills more than once, and even the sect master had secretly asked him to refine several furnaces of pills for them. Chapter 422. Yao Bin. The chief elder frowned, a bit of impatience in his eyes. Before this, he had heard people mention that several disciples had died under his hands. But as he thought of the sect master's reminder, he hesitated for a moment and asked, "What is the cause of this?" The elder didn't conceal anything. He completely explained the results of his investigation. To them, this matter wasn't a secret. What Jiang Taisho and Yao Bin were fighting for was the benefits of spirit plant materials. The chief elder's complexion darkened. He coldly coughed and said, "The sect also needs the spirit plant pills that Jiang Taisho refined. Yao Bin has indeed gone a bit too far this time." With a few words, the elders understood what the chief elder was thinking. It seemed that he was starting to feel impatient with Yao Bin, who hadn't performed well this entire time. Following that, there was no need to continue discussing the matter. The meeting ended and the elders dispersed. After the elder who mentioned this matter returned to his dwelling, he smiled. He took out his handphone and dialed a number. After the call connected, he said, "It's fine." On the other side, as Grandmaster Jiang listened to the dial tone, he smiled. Since the chief elder no longer tolerated him, he no longer had any scruples. He called over a disciple and whispered some orders. The disciple nodded again and again, bowing and hurrying away. Soon, rumors began to spread through the Black Demon sect that Grandmaster Yao didn't want to fight. Moreover, as time passed, the rumors grew louder and louder. Although one could choose not to accept a challenge, in the demonic path where one slaughtered as they pleased, avoiding a challenge was an extremely shameful matter. Unless there was a great disparity in strength and there was no chance of victory, no one would choose to retreat in the face of a challenge. Grandmaster Yao didn't respond on the first day, but there were already Black Demon sect cultivators who frowned. On the second, third, and fourth days of silence, the Black Demon sect cultivators revealed looks of disdain. In fact, the number of people that came to trade spirit plant materials dropped by 70 to 80%. The small number of cultivators that came to trade didn't have their usual respectful demeanor. Although they didn't dare to openly reveal anything, there was still a bit of disdain in their eyes. This caused Tutu, who was responsible for receiving guests, to fly into a rage. His complexion became increasingly ugly. If it weren't for Qin Yu's strict orders not to act recklessly, he would have already erupted. Although Tuba's complexion was gloomy, for better or worse he managed to maintain his composure. With his understanding of His Highness, he knew that His Highness wasn't a cowardly person. He and Tutu had already reported this matter to their superiors. His Highness appeared calm and confident. Moreover, with His Highness's strength, there was no reason for him to avoid the battle. Just how revered was the status of the Nine-Realm Holy Land Saint Sun. To be able to obtain this status was enough to prove just how powerful His Highness was. "Tuba, why hasn't the Grandmaster come out yet?" Tutu scratched his head, an anxious look on his face. Tutu said in a deep voice, "Others might not know, but how can you and I not know? Grandmaster had been cultivating in seclusion all this time and was completely unaware of what was happening outside. When the Grandmaster comes out of seclusion, he will naturally let those who are jumping up and down know why the slap is so resounding. Tutu said sullenly, I know, but I can't help it. Who does Jiang think he is? How dare you challenge our master? If I wasn't afraid of bringing trouble to the great master, I would have rushed over right now and twisted this bastard's neck. Calm down. Tutu's voice suddenly paused and a happy expression appeared on his face. Grandmaster has come out of seclusion. He let out a long breath of relief. The stifling feeling in his chest instantly disappeared. Although he appeared calm on the surface, he and Tutu were both enraged by the way the outside world looked at His Highness. Tutu was overjoyed. Let's go. Let's inform the Grandmaster. These people's good days are about to come to an end. At this time, a figure walked out from the entrance of the hall. A black robe covered his entire body. This was Qin Yu, who had borrowed the name of Grandmaster Yao. He lightly said, There's no need for you to inform me. I have already seen the notice from the Internal Affairs Division. He looked up at the bright and beautiful sun above his head. His lips curved up in a smile. I never thought that some people would be so impatient. They only went into seclusion for a few days and yet they stirred up such a great ruckus. After cultivating the 5-element mountain for over 2 years, Qin Yu had finally reached small success in the path of metal and his cultivation had risen to the 8th level of divine soul. The joy of making a breakthrough lingered in his heart, completely unaffected by this matter. But, since someone had offered him a precious spirit plant seed, if he didn't accept it then he would be letting down their good intentions. Using alchemy to decide victory or defeat. Qin Yu's smile widened. It had to be known that in this world, the one thing he feared the least was alchemy. This Grandmaster Jiang had chosen the one thing he relied on the most to challenge him. His luck was far too good. Qin Yu stepped out. He didn't look back, but he seemed to see the hesitation on Tuba and Tutu's faces. He lightly said, This sort of reversal is wonderful at every moment. Do you two want to miss it? We don't. The two were overjoyed. They strode forwards, their long legs rumbling as they chased after him. Tuba hesitated for a moment. Then, he flipped his hand and took out 2 large black crystal sunglasses. He handed one to Tutu and the two of them put them on. Immediately, their slaughter intent erupted and their auras rose by 100%. As they followed behind Qin Yu, they were no different from 2 evil stars. As they walked towards the Internal Affairs Division, they attracted the stunned gazes of countless Black Demon sect cultivators. Grandmaster Yao had appeared and was heading straight for the Internal Affairs Division. This news instantly ignited the emotions of everyone in the Black Demon sect. Their breathing deepened and their faces filled with excitement. After being a turtle for so long, they finally couldn't bear it any longer. That's right, they had to be like a man and accept the bet. Even if they lost, they wouldn't have anything at all. At most they would have to shoulder a massive debt, but that was still better than being looked down upon by others for the rest of their lives. Of course, these thoughts contained a thick sense of schadenfreude. Purple Spring had an excited expression. Honorable Master, that surname Yao has appeared. He's hurrying towards the Internal Affairs Division. Grandmaster Zhang's eyebrows arched up, a bit of surprise in his eyes. I thought that Grandmaster Yao was prepared to endure some humiliation, but I didn't think he would have a bit of bravery. If so, I can't bear to see him like this. The numerous disciples immediately began to flatter him like a tide. Teacher is magnanimous, but this little rascal is seeking his own destruction. That surname Yao has brought this upon himself. Teacher is benevolent, but you must not be soft-hearted towards those who offend your dignity. Grandmaster Jiang sighed. Whatever, the bet has already been made. At most, I will make him lose a bit more gracefully in the competition. After all, Grandmaster Yao and I are both alchemists. In the Black Demon sect, we should support each other. Why are we in such a rush to torture each other? Internal Affairs Division. Although Grandmaster Yao's reputation had been ruined and the situation was far from good, there were still remnants of his fierce aura. The cultivators here didn't dare to be negligent. An Internal Affairs Division elder appeared. He invited Qin Yu in and offered some refreshments. Then, with a worried expression, he said, "Grandmaster Yao, this matter is far too reckless. Grandmaster Jiang is not someone you should provoke." Qin Yu laid down his teacup. He lightly said, "I know, but since things have come to this, what use is there in saying this? I ask Elder to pass on a message that I accept the bet." The Internal Affairs Division elder shook his head. "Ha. Very well, we will immediately inform Grandmaster Jiang. I wonder when Grandmaster Yao will arrange the bet." After a moment of hesitation, he added, "According to the rules, you must compete with Grandmaster Jiang within a month of agreeing to the bet." Qin Yu's eyes flashed. "Then let's do it today." The Internal Affairs Division elder was surprised. Isn't this a bit too hasty?" Qin Yu said, "I've already made everyone wait for many days. Now that I have some free time, let's do it earlier." "What, is there something wrong with that?" The Internal Affairs Division elder dryly laughed. "That's not it. Grandmaster Yao, please wait here for a moment. I will immediately go and ask." He stood up and hurried away. Grandmaster Jiang laid down his handphone, a playful smile on his face. This Grandmaster Yao seemed to be very confident. Perhaps he had obtained some harvests from his seclusion. "Then let this old man trample all of your confidence beneath my feet and crush it into dregs." The Internal Affairs Division elder returned with a smile. Grandmaster Jiang has already agreed. The Internal Affairs Division will immediately make arrangements. The match will be held in 2 hours. I wish Grandmaster Yao the best of luck. Qin Yu cupped his hands together. "Thank you for your kind words." Without staying any longer, he bid his farewells and left the Internal Affairs Division. Outside, the towering figures of Tuba and Tutu had already attracted the attention of many cultivators. As they saw Qin Yu appear, their eyes brightened. "Let's go." Qin Yu walked away. Tuba and Tutu respectfully followed. The crowd drew back like a tide, revealing a path. For some unknown reason, at this moment, many Black Demon sect cultivators that looked down on Grandmaster Yao for not daring to accept the challenge discovered that they couldn't reveal the least bit of disdain. It was like Grandmaster Yao had an indescribable temperament about him that made others feel awe and awe. The Internal Affairs Division elder watched Qin Yu leave. Then, he suddenly frowned, hesitation in his eyes. He could feel that Grandmaster Yao didn't seem to fear him at all. And at this moment, not fearing him represented the greatest confidence in his heart. Could it be that he was confident he could win this bet? His eyebrows furrowed tighter and tighter, a tangled look on his face. It had to be known that he had placed a considerable bet in the sex betting pool. He originally wanted to make some extra money, but no. The reason he had placed this bet was because he had inadvertently obtained some hints from some great figure's words. Grandmaster Zhang's alchemy skills were far greater than what he had revealed so far. Even if he had some methods, once Grandmaster Zhang attacked with his full strength, there would be no chance of victory. Thinking like this, the Internal Affairs Division elder dispelled his hesitation. What he didn't know was that he had already missed the final chance to avoid losses. As for whether or not this Internal Affairs Division elder would ruthlessly slap himself in the face several times and weep in pain, that wasn't something they needed to worry about. The bet between Jiang and Yao, 2 alchemy grandmasters, would be held today, 2 hours from now. The Internal Affairs Division spread out this news at the fastest speed possible. The Black Demon sect cultivators were all shocked. Then, some hurriedly went back to their work, some simply put off their work, and some even rushed over. What nonsense, who had nothing better to do all day just waiting for you two to compete. But this was a battle between 2 alchemy grandmasters, especially when the stakes were expensive. As long as there was a chance, no one was willing to miss it. Cough cough, of course, there were other reasons. This was such a good chance to earn spirit stones. Everyone here was a smart person, so no one wanted to miss it. More or less, everyone had placed a bet. When it involved their own pockets, it was hard not to care about it. 2 hours from now, the competition would begin. Chin didn't want to waste any more time. He casually found a resting pavilion and sat down to enjoy the scenery. Tuba hesitated for a long time. He respectfully said, "Grandmaster, there is something I don't know whether or not I should say." Chin smiled. "You've already said it. Do you want to leave the other half hanging in suspense?" Tuba awkwardly smiled. In the Black Demon sect, there is someone who has opened a bet on the result of your bet with that surnamed young fellow. Your odds are 1-5. Chin Yu's eyes brightened. He flipped his hand and took out a storage ring. "What are you doing here? Change your appearance and immediately place a bet. Put down all the spirit stones inside." "Do you need me to tell you how to place a bet?" Tuba grinned. This subordinate understands. He received the storage ring with both hands and ran away, his eyes filled with killing intent. Humph humph. You dare to look down on His Highness? Then I'll make you vomit blood. With a flip of his hand, Tuba took out another storage ring. Although the Titan race didn't cultivate magic power, over the countless years, there had been a constant flow of outside cultivators that entered and they had accumulated an astonishing amount of wealth. He had originally prepared it for His Highness to use, but now it seemed he could increase it several times over first. An hour later, Tuba returned with an exquisite jade pendant and returned the storage ring. "Grandmaster, the bet has been placed. Once the result of the bet comes out, you can withdraw it with this." Chin Yu flicked his sleeves and put away the storage ring. He smiled. He loved betting the most. In the future, when he raised the purple-back blue-wing ants, he would need an astonishing amount of high-level monster beast souls and blood. If he hunted them himself, it would be far too difficult and his speed would be too slow. Thus, it was much more convenient to purchase them. Thus, the more spirit stones he had, the better it was. This was a completely unexpected harvest. Thinking of this, Chin Yu nodded at Tuba, a gratified expression on his face. Chapter 423. Chin Yu put away his phone. "Let's go." Tuba and Tutu both revealed looks of excitement. Although they didn't know where Chin Yu's confidence came from, they still had no idea. However, they did not doubt it at all. Since His Highness was so confident, he would definitely be able to do it. "Jiang, you won't be able to cry later." As the competition venue, Heavenly Worship Hall had long been filled with a dense crowd. The Internal Affairs Division sold tickets for cultivators below the Protector rank for 100 spirit stones per ticket. They earned so much that their fingers went soft. Of course, a single heavenweight temple wasn't enough to satisfy the needs of the cultivators watching the battle. Thus, the Internal Affairs Division set up a synchronized projection. 10 spirit stones could buy a standing ticket. Currently, the large square was also surging with people. A rough count estimated that there were probably thousands of people. Although Chin Yu had only brought Tuba and Tutu with him, these 2 10-foot-tall fellows wore black slave robes that clung tightly to their bodies, revealing their bulging muscles. In addition to the giant black sunglasses that rested on their noses, the aura they exuded was enough to instantly kill all minions. They were simply walking eye magnets. Thus, just as the three of them stepped out from the small transmission array, they were discovered by sharp-eyed black demon sect cultivators. Then, countless eyes gathered on them. Perhaps it was a coincidence, but just as the three of them entered the square, a series of flashes of light appeared from a small transmission array across from them. Grandmaster Jiang was the first to step out. Behind him were a dozen or so elite disciples. Purple Spring had fully recovered from his injuries. Now, his vicious eyes covered the three of them. If looks could kill, Qin Yu, Tuba, and Tutu would have already been chopped into meat paste by swords, spears, and axes. The eyes of countless cultivators in the square lit up. Grandmaster Jiang smiled. Grandmaster Yao, it's been a while. Qin Yu lightly said, Grandmaster Jiang. There is no need for today's dispute to begin with. If Grandmaster Yao can hand over these two cheap servants to my disciples to deal with, I can cancel this bet. Grandmaster Jiang's eyes flashed. I am very sincere, there's no need. Qin Yu interrupted. He turned and walked towards Heavenweight Temple. How dare you? How dare you offend my master? Yao Bin, you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. You're courting death. You're not qualified to go against my master. When the disciples saw Grandmaster Jiang being humiliated, their anger soared to the sky and they couldn't help but roar. Tuba and Tuta stopped at the same time. They turned to look at them, their eyes icy cold and their bodies erupted with a terrifying killing intent that left one in despair. Those who disrespect our Grandmaster shall die. In an instant, it was as if a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood had descended. The roaring and cursing people trembled, and their faces paled. Uncontrollably, fear appeared in their eyes. Qin Yu didn't turn around. He lightly said, there will be results soon. Why waste your saliva here? Tuba and Tutu restrained their auras. Yes, Grandmaster. He followed behind respectfully. The crowd was utterly shocked by the sight. Although many people had heard that Grandmaster Yao had two powerful barbarians as his subordinates, it wasn't until this moment that they realized just how powerful these two barbarians were. This aura was enough to crush all divine souls. Didn't that mean that each one of them had strength comparable to an ordinary blue sea? What was even more terrifying was the murderous aura emanating from the two barbarians. Only a terrifying character that had experienced countless slaughters and walked out from a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood could temper such a terrifying killing intent. With this killing intent combined, even a cultivator with strength similar to the two barbarians wouldn't be their match. At this moment, countless eyes looked at the back of the black-robed figure, awe in their eyes. Not to mention anything else, just subduing these two powerful barbarians was enough to earn everyone's admiration. Without strength, it was impossible to accomplish such a feat. Could it be that Grandmaster Yao was a hidden blue sea powerhouse? Grandmaster Jiang's complexion changed for a moment before he composed himself. He lightly coughed and swept out with his divine sense, awakening the disciples beneath him. He lightly said, at this moment, I am actually looking forward to this competition a bit. His calm voice, supported by magic power, clearly spread into the ears of every cultivator present. Everyone could feel the faint pressure that sprinkled down from his voice. Blue Sea Realm. Moreover, he had to be at least at the revered Blue Sea Realm, otherwise it would have been impossible for him to accomplish this so easily. Grandmaster Jiang himself was actually a revered Blue Sea super powerhouse. This was beyond everyone's expectations, but they soon became excited. Everyone knew that refining pills also had high cultivation requirements for an alchemist. Grandmaster Jiang's boundary was deep, so it was clear that his alchemy skills were also astonishing. It seemed that Grandmaster Yao's unfathomable depths had stimulated Grandmaster Jiang, this competition really left everyone looking forward to it. Grandmaster Jiang was expressionless as he walked towards Heavenweight Temple. Behind him were over a dozen elite disciples, all of them covered in dirt and grime. Their hearts were filled with anger and hatred. They had actually been frightened by two mere barbarian slaves. This was truly shameful. Once their honorable master obtained victory, they would definitely think of a way to imprison these two barbarians and torture them to death in order to dispel the hatred in their hearts. Tuba and Tutu's eruption of killing intent as well as Grandmaster Zhang's counterattack had already aroused the attention of those within Heavenweight Temple. The several great figures sitting in their seats with their eyes closed, waiting for the competition to begin, suddenly opened their eyes, a bit of shock on their faces. They glanced at each other and then stood up, walking to the entrance of the temple to greet them. In the world of cultivators, strength was status. In the demonic path, this was the highest standard. Since Grandmaster Jiang and Grandmaster Yao were strong enough, they naturally had to give them the respect they deserved. Grandmaster Jiang, Grandmaster Yao, you two have finally arrived. Among the several people, a middle-aged man smiled. Looking at where he stood, it was clear that this person had the highest status. Jiang Taisho cupped his hands together. Elder Su. Qin Yu nodded. Everyone greeted each other, speaking nonsense. But, from the small details of their conversation, it was possible to see which side they were leaning towards. For instance, at the start, Elder Su first greeted Jiang Taisho. It had to be known that Qin Yu had entered Heavenweight Temple a step earlier than him. As this fell into the eyes of everyone in the temple, the cultivators who had placed their bets let out a sigh of relief. Grandmaster Jiang was indeed superior. They had already won this bet. Elder Su coughed. Grandmaster Jiang, Grandmaster Yao, it's getting late. If you two are ready, then let's begin the gambling match. Grandmaster Jiang smiled, not speaking. Qin Yu naturally wouldn't oppose this. That's good. Then let's ask the Internal Affairs Division's Elder Zhou to preside over the match. Let us all go to the viewing platform. Elder Su smiled and left with the others. The Internal Affairs Division's Elder Zhou was an old man with grizzled hair. He solemnly said, Grandmasters, the content of your gambling match today is the Tao of Alchemy. Then, please choose your topic. He clapped his hands and two Internal Affairs Division disciples carried out a round disc. Grandmasters, please place your hands on it. Countless streams of light hauled around the disc, as if it were a beautiful nebula. Grandmaster Jiang stepped forwards. He casually pointed a finger at the disc and a beam of light flew out. Grandmaster Yao, it's your turn. Qin Yu didn't know what this disc was, but he wouldn't reveal it right now. He also casually pointed a finger. A second beam of light flew out. Elder Zhou flicked his sleeves and the two beams of light fused together. After wriggling for a moment, they turned into two large characters, detoxify. Pa, the characters scattered, turning back into beams of light that flew back into the disc. Elder Zhou waved his hand and two Internal Affairs Division disciples carried the disc away. Two lords, the topic of your gambling match today is to detoxify. Elder Zhou flipped his hand and took out a jade slip. This is the procedure of the gambling match. We will choose felons of the same level in the sect and place a similar poison on them. Whichever Grandmaster can detoxify the poison first will be the victor. Of course, the premise is that the two Grandmasters must rely on their own methods to detoxify the poison and cannot rely on anything else, otherwise they will be judged to have lost. This sort of gambling match could determine victory and defeat without harming the participating cultivators. This was a rule established long ago by the Black Demon sect to avoid unnecessary internal losses. Wait a moment. Jiang Taisho's eyes flashed. I feel that this sort of competition is a bit unfair. After all, There are countless poisons in the world and it is impossible for anyone to completely control them. If one were to encounter a familiar poison, even if one's strength is inferior to their opponent, they might still be able to easily win. Moreover, everyone's physiques are different. Even if they suffer the same poison, there are differences in the difficulty of treating it. Elder Zhou frowned. Grandmaster Zhang's meaning is. Jiang Taisho smiled. It's simple. Grandmaster Yao and I will personally test the poison. Victory and defeat will not be determined by how quickly we detoxify the poison. As long as we can detoxify the poison within a quarter hour, then we will smoothly enter the next poison test. This will continue until one side is unable to detoxify the poison or admits defeat. This sort of gambling match is undoubtedly fairer. Of course, there are some risks. If one's strength isn't high enough, they might be injured by the poison. But, I wonder if Grandmaster Yao dares to accept. The conflict in the square had caused Grandmaster Jiang to be truly angered. This surname Yao didn't know how to appreciate favors. Today, he would teach him an unforgettable lesson. Whoosh, there was an uproar in Heavenweight Temple. Many Black Demon sect cultivators revealed shocked expressions before becoming even more excited. No one thought that Grandmaster Zhang's methods would be so swift and fierce. Not only did he want to determine victory and defeat, but he also wanted to kill someone. It had to be known that demonic path poisons weren't something that could be provoked. If one wasn't careful, even an alchemy grandmaster would suffer excruciating pain if the poison invaded their body. This. Elder Zhou revealed an awkward expression. The Internal Affairs Division was responsible for all internal affairs of the sect. Preventing the sect's cultivators from suffering unnecessary losses was one of his duties to begin with. A strange light flashed in Elder Su's eyes. He lightly said, Elder Zhou, if the person who proposed the gambling match makes a request and the opponent doesn't object, then changing the rules is also permitted. There have been precedents in the sect before, so there is no need for you to feel awkward. Elder Zhou cupped his hands together. Yes, I understand. He stood up and looked at Qin Yu. He solemnly said, Grandmaster Yao, you are aware of Grandmaster Zhang's request. I wonder if you agree. Qin Yu's complexion became strange. He looked at Jiang Taisho and saw his carefree expression. His lips couldn't help but twitch. This person, was he looking to die? His silence caused Grandmaster Zhang's smile to become even brighter. Grandmaster Yao, there is no need to be afraid. If you think it is inappropriate, I won't force you. Qin Yu was silent for several more breaths of time. He coughed and said, since Grandmaster Jiang says this, then I can only risk my life to accompany you. Qin Yu didn't have much confidence. It was as if he were forced to agree, but he didn't want to lose face. This caused Grandmaster Zhang's lips to curl up in a mocking smile, revealing a bit of satisfaction. As this expression fell into Qin Yu's eyes, a light smile appeared on his face hidden beneath his black robes. Since someone was seeking death, if he didn't give them a push, how could he be worthy of Grandmaster Zhang's intelligence? Elder Zhou sighed inwardly, but his complexion didn't change at all. He said, since the two grandmasters have agreed to change the rules of the competition, then the method of the competition will be confirmed. He lifted a hand and said, add the poison. A sealing jade pagoda was brought into the hall and placed on a long table. Elder Zhou carefully tore open the first layer of sealing talismans. Two dark lights flew out, each wrapped in a drop of grayish-brown liquid. Elder Zhou drew back several steps and gestured with his hand. Two grandmasters, please inspect them. If there are no objections, then the gambling match will officially begin. Grandmaster Jiang smiled. It looks like my luck isn't bad. The first bet is the Taint Soul Knight. I have studied it before, so I can tell whether it is real or fake with a single glance, so there is no need to inspect it again. The reason he was showing off was to show everyone that his proposal was fairer. Otherwise, if he directly used the Taint Soul Knight as the gambling match, he would have already taken the advantage. He glanced at Qin Yu from the corner of his eyes. What caused Grandmaster Jiang to frown was that Qin Yu didn't seem to hear his words at all. He walked forwards and swallowed a drop of the Taint Soul Knight. This sort of performance was simply not putting him in his eyes at all. Grandmaster Jiang was enraged. He sneered inwardly. I'll let you be arrogant for now, but I'll make sure you suffer later. The good show had only just begun. He lifted a hand, took the Taint Soul Knight, and swallowed it. Many Black Demon sect cultivators in the hall gulped. This was the demonic path's Taint Soul Knight that was specially used to corrode the soul. Although it couldn't be considered an extreme poison, once one was infected, it was extremely troublesome to remove. Moreover, this poison had an extremely strong infectivity. Once it wasn't thoroughly removed, it would invade the soul and one would have to suffer the pain of being corroded for the rest of their life. Seeing the two people swallow it without blinking, the psychological impact of this scene was intense. Less than 3 minutes passed. Grandmaster Jiang opened his eyes and lightly said, I have already detoxified the poison. An Internal Affairs Division cultivator immediately stepped forwards, using a special poison detecting treasure to inspect the poison. After several breaths of time, a blue light lit up, indicating that the poison had been completely eliminated. And not too far away, Grandmaster Yao was still silent, as if he were painstakingly forcing out the poison. Hee, if it weren't for the rules being changed, Grandmaster Jiang would have already won. It looks like the result of today's gambling fight has already been decided. Those with great reputations live up to their reputation. For Grandmaster Jiang to be ranked third, his strength is truly unfathomable. Grandmaster Jiang lightly smiled. It's no matter. The time isn't up yet, so let's wait a little longer. After another 3 minutes, Grandmaster Yao let out a long breath. I have also detoxified the poison. He was also tested. There was no poison at all. Elder Zhou said, Grandmasters, does anyone admit defeat? Otherwise, the gambling fight will continue. Seeing that no one responded, he lifted a hand and pointed. From the first level of the Jade Pagoda, 2 more dark lights flew out. This time, the dark lights wrapped around 2 leaves that were nearly identical in shape and size. They were verdant and glistening, as if they were made of some sort of jade. Just by looking at them, one could feel the powerful vitality contained within. Fallen leaf. A Black Demon sect cultivator cried out involuntarily. In the crowd, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. There were a few people that didn't know what this was, but after they heard the explanation, they all revealed looks of fear. In a land of extreme heat and extreme cold, because of a lucky chance, a strange plant could grow. It was bred by the heavens and earth, and after thousands of years of growth, all of its essence energy would gather into the tallest leaf. Afterwards, the main body would wither and die. This leaf was called the fallen leaf. Hashtag. Chapter 424. Hidden beneath this slightly sentimental name was a fatal annihilation attribute. This was because once a lost leaf was touched, it would use a different method to parasitize the host, treating the host as the main body that gave birth to it. It would plunder away all of the host's strength until the host finally died. As for the parasitic method of the lost leaf, in the world of cultivators, it was similar to a type of spreading poison, or perhaps it was called a poison bug. Grandmaster Jiang revealed a dignified expression. I never thought there would be a lost leaf on the first level. This is a bit difficult. Although he said this, he remained calm, clearly not afraid at all. At this time, his eyes fell on Qin Yu. Although he didn't say anything, a bit of disdain rose up in his heart, floating in the air. Grand Master Yao stuffily coughed. He hesitated for a second and then reached out to grab the dark light. As his palm touched the lost leaf, it emitted a low cry of joy. It trembled for a moment before turning into liquid that fused into his flesh and blood. As Grand Master Jiang saw this, his lips curled up in a smile. 5 minutes later, Grand Master Jiang successfully dispelled the poison and forced out the lost leaf that had fused into his body. This method was inconceivably high. There were cries of alarm in Heavenweight Temple and countless eyes filled with awe. Grand Master Yao was even worse off this time. It took him 11 minutes to unravel the lost leaf, and as he did so, the lost leaf was also destroyed. This speed, this quality, it was on a completely different level from Grand Master Jiang's. Grand Master Yao, in order to save your face, you should admit defeat now. Otherwise, if this continues, I fear you will be even more embarrassed. One of Jiang Taisho's disciples loudly said. It seemed as if he were sincerely considering things for Grand Master Yao, but in this current situation, his intentions were truly sinister. As expected, Grand Master Yao shouted out in anger, "How insolent! A mere junior actually dares to mock me." Grand Master Jiang shook his head. He lightly said, "Yunhai, do not be rude to Grand Master Yao. Grand Master Yao's alchemy cultivation is unfathomably deep and he hasn't even brought out his true level yet. It's hard to say what the result of this gambling fight will be." He looked over. Grand Master Yao, although the poison on the first level isn't bad, the threat it poses to us is limited. If we don't switch to an even fiercer poison, I fear it will be difficult to determine victory or defeat in a short period of time. How about I ask Elder Zhou to open the sealed pagoda's second level? Grand Master Yao said, "I have no objections." Many Black Demon sect cultivators in Heavenweight Temple cursed him for being an idiot. They never thought that this surname Yao would be so stupid that he didn't even realize he had fallen into someone else's trap. He was done for. Grand Master Jiang was all smiles. How delightful. He turned and said, "Elder Zhou, please open the second floor." Elder Zhou sighed inwardly and nodded. "Very well. Grand Masters, please wait a moment." After several breaths of time, with a flick of his sleeves, the seal on the second level of the sealed pagoda was lifted. 2 increasingly rich masses of dark light flew out. Poison of temptation. This is truly worthy of being the sect's sealed poison pagoda. Even the second level contains such a terrifying poison. If it were you or me, I'm afraid that if we were to come into contact with it, we would only be able to howl and wait for death. 7 minutes later, Grand Master Jiang opened his eyes. "I have detoxified the poison." As for Grand Master Yao, he used a full 13 minutes. He also used a pill that he refined himself to barely resolve the poison within the time limit. An alchemist's job was to refine pills. Thus, the pills that they refined themselves could be used in the duel. It could not be considered as relying on external objects. Grand Master Yao's methods are excellent. Jiang Taisho praised. I ask Elder Zhou to continue. The fourth poison, heart-eroding grass. This was a type of poison that caused terrifying damage to the mortal body. Its attributes were fierce and overbearing. If one didn't control it, it could instantly corrode a person's body into a puddle of stinky mucus. Grand Master Jiang used 10 minutes to detoxify the poison. This time, Grand Master Yao only used 8 minutes. Everyone was surprised and immediately thought that he had run into some dog's hit luck. It was clear that this surname Yao had come into contact with heart-eroding grass before, thus he was able to detoxify the poison in such a short period of time. This couldn't be counted at all. The fifth poison, Dark Night Nether. This was a poison that was formulated by a demonic path alchemist. It was a mixture of several different poisons that mutually reinforced and restrained each other. Finally, it evolved into this poison. It was extremely troublesome to deal with. Grandmaster Jiang used 12 minutes. Grandmaster Yao. 15 minutes. That's right, he had held back a bit to detoxify the poison and had even taken several pills. If it weren't for the fact that he had inspected the pills and confirmed that they were personally refined by Grandmaster Yao, he would have already been judged defeated. Grandmaster Jiang frowned. He lightly said, "It looks like it won't be easy to decide victory or defeat on the second level. Grandmaster Yao, how about you and I open the third level of the sealed pagoda?" After a long period of silence, Grandmaster Yao reluctantly nodded. This time, the unsealing speed was much slower. Grandmaster Yao sat down cross-legged, as if he were making use of this time to restore the losses in his body. This formed a sharp contrast with the indifferent Grandmaster Jiang who was standing there with his hands behind his back. The Black Demon sect cultivators in the hall revealed sneers. In this sort of overwhelming disadvantage, he still wanted to stubbornly persist. He simply didn't know what he was doing. With a humming sound, the third level of the sealed pagoda was unsealed. Elder Zhou had a solemn expression. He lifted a hand and pointed downwards. A barrier of light fell down, covering the sealed pagoda. After finishing this, his complexion relaxed a little. He said, "Two Grandmasters, after reaching the third level of the sealed pagoda, the damaging abilities of the poisons will be extremely terrifying. If you don't have full confidence in yourself, then I advise you to admit defeat in order to avoid suffering too much or even losing your life." Most of these words were said to Grandmaster Yao. But Grandmaster Yao would rather die than lose face and didn't respond at all. Elder Zhou simply didn't say anything more. The gambling match continues. The sixth bet, 7-colored rainbow. This poison spread through the air and was colorless and odorless. Even ordinary magic power barriers couldn't completely block it out. The reason it was given such a name was that when one was poisoned, 7 colors would gradually appear on their body. If one were to take one every day, they wouldn't feel any pain or discomfort at all. In fact, they would even feel energetic. But once 7 days passed and the 7 colors gathered together, they would instantly die from the poison. Grandmaster Jiang was clearly much more cautious. He first took out several pills and had them examined by the Internal Affairs Division. Then, he took out the 7-colored rainbow and swallowed it into his body. 11 minutes later, with the help of a pill, Grandmaster Jiang opened his eyes and let out a long breath. His complexion was a bit pale and his eyes revealed a bit of exhaustion. It was clear that dispelling the poison this time wasn't easy for him. However, Grandmaster Jiang still felt a bit of pride in his heart. It had to be known that this was the 7-colored rainbow. With the help of a single pill, he had used 11 minutes to dispel the poison. This result was extremely fierce. Jiang Taisho swept his eyes around. As he looked at the motionless Grandmaster Yao, his lips curved up in a smile. This gambling match should be over. Once he was infected with the 7-colored rainbow poison, even if that surname Yao didn't hesitate to pay any price to ask the powerhouses of the sect to help him dispel it, he would still lose most of his life. Afterwards, with a few more arrangements, even if he didn't lose his life, that surname Yao's life would be completely ruined. But at this time, there was a loud exhale. Grandmaster Yao's voice sounded out, "I have dispelled the poison." He had actually only used a single pill. Grandmaster Jiang's eyes widened in shock. An Internal Affairs Division cultivator hurried forwards to inspect Grandmaster Yao's body. Indeed, the 7-colored rainbow poison had disappeared. Let alone Grandmaster Jiang, no one in the hall could have imagined this result. Is this a familiar poison again? I heard that Grandmaster Yao has always tortured prisoners for fun and that he likes to use living people to experiment. It's possible that he has used the 7-colored rainbow before. Hee, what luck. Otherwise, the gambling match would have ended here and we could have happily gone to the betting booth to collect our spirit stones. This is only a matter of time. I don't believe that he can always be so lucky. In the end, what people rely on is their own strength. For instance, Grandmaster Jiang Taisho. The hall was abuzz with discussion. Grandmaster Yao coldly snorted but didn't say anything, as if he were tacitly agreeing with everyone's speculations. Grandmaster Jiang relaxed a little. Since this was only a coincidence, he would just have to spend a bit more effort. He gestured with his hand, Elder Zhou, please continue. His tone was a bit stiff, no longer as calm as before. No matter how it was said, this surname Yao had managed to last until now, far surpassing his expectations. The 7th poison, blue sky highest heavens. This was a strange poison that followed a meteor from beyond the heavens and fell to the earth. After the strange substance within fused with the spiritual strength of the world, it formed a strange poison. The word strange indicated that this poison was extremely rare and didn't have any conventional methods of dispelling it. Grandmaster Jiang swallowed down 3 pills. Then, with a dignified expression, he swallowed the blue sky highest heavens. Just as the poison entered his body, Grandmaster Jiang's complexion changed. He swallowed down another 4 detoxification pills and only then did his rapidly paling face regain a bit of color. Even so, Grandmaster Jiang had to use 10 pills and spend 13 minutes before he was able to dispel the poison. This time, he was absolutely safe. The blue sky highest heavens was an incomparably rare poison. Even if this surname Yao liked to use poison to torture prisoners, he still wouldn't use this poison. Humph. Although he had suffered a bit, the blue sky highest heavens was far more difficult to deal with than the 7-colored rainbow. Once it entered the body and couldn't be completely removed, it would form a deposit of poison. At that time, it would be impossible to completely dispel it. Although he wouldn't die in a short period of time, he would be entangled by this poison for the rest of his life. He would constantly have to withstand the pain of the poison invading his body. This sort of life was the greatest form of torture, until his vitality dried up and the poison completely erupted, only then would he be able to escape death. Thinking of this, Grandmaster Jiang's eyes turned cold. This surname Yao had brought about his own destruction. If he had admitted defeat earlier, he wouldn't have ended up in such a situation. Jiang Taisho didn't think that from the very beginning, today's events had been painstakingly arranged by him. Ordering his disciples to humiliate Grandmaster Yao in front of everyone was also one of his methods to prevent him from admitting defeat midway. Now that he had such hypocritical thoughts, it was just too disgusting. The 15th minute. As the last several breaths of time passed, Grandmaster Jiang's disciples revealed smiles ahead of time. In the hall, the cultivators who were placing their bets wore joyful expressions too. But at this time, a voice that caused their moods to darken suddenly sounded out. Cough cough, my poison has been dispelled. The Internal Affairs Division cultivator responsible for keeping time looked down at the hourglass. There were still several grains of sand remaining, not falling down. He sighed inwardly at how good his luck was. He said in a low voice, within the allotted time. As usual, he checked the remaining poison. As the blue lights lit up, there were sighs in the grand hall. Many eyes gathered on Grandmaster Yao, all of them filled with resentment. You've already pushed the line twice, how come you're like a roly-poly doll, so difficult to push down? It would have been better if you had admitted defeat, but why did you have to stubbornly persist like this? Even if you were uncomfortable, we would still have to suffer along with you. This sort of high and low mood was hard to bear. Jiang Taisho frowned. His eyes turned cold and gloomy. He stared at Grandmaster Yao several times and suddenly said, Grandmaster Yao has hidden his strength well. I admire you, I admire you. His words were icy cold, but also filled with vigilance. The resentful cultivators in the grand hall were startled, revealing a bit of surprise. This was just another stroke of luck. Why did Grandmaster Jiang place so much importance on him? Suddenly, a black demon sect cultivator said, Grandmaster Yao doesn't seem to have eaten a single pill. Everyone was stunned. When Grandmaster Jiang had dispelled the poison, they had been completely focused on watching and hadn't noticed this point. If he hadn't used a single pill to unravel the blue sky highest heaven's poison, then didn't that mean that Grandmaster Yao's detoxification methods were far superior to Grandmaster Jiang's? Then all of this had been an act? No wonder Grandmaster Jiang had such a solemn expression. The cultivators in the grand hall were all dumbfounded. They had just been thinking that they would at most go and pick up the spirit stones later, but in just a short period of time, they had gone for wool and come home shorn. They couldn't even keep their capital. Grandmaster Yao sneered. Grandmaster Jiang, to be able to force me to use my true abilities, you aren't too bad. Then, he changed the topic. If you admit defeat now, there is still time. Otherwise, if you encounter an even more fierce poison later, it will be too late for regret. Jiang Taisho's heart sank. At this time, on the viewing platform, Elder Su coughed. In the early years, Grandmaster Yao was once poisoned by the blue sky highest heavens. There aren't many people in the sect that know of this matter, and I only happened to hear the chief elder mention it once. Thinking about it, it must be because of this that Grandmaster Yao was able to easily dispel the poison. His luck is truly excellent. He faintly smiled. Grandmaster Yao, I think you won't mind if I speak of this matter, right? After all, in a gambling fight, there must be a certain degree of fairness. Grandmaster Yao coldly snorted, his teeth clenched. But, he didn't dare to turn hostile with Elder Su. His breathing became heavier and heavier. Jiang Taisho's complexion relaxed. So that's how it is. I thought that Grandmaster Yao really was a peerless expert, but it turns out that this empty city stratagem was just good luck. But, I wonder just how long Grandmaster Yao's good luck can last. Beneath the black robes, Qin Yu revealed a mocking smile. As he thought, Elder Su knew that Grandmaster Yao had been poisoned by the blue sky highest heavens. This was indeed a coincidence. Qin Yu had refined Grandmaster Yao's soul and had completely accepted this painful memory of the past. Now that he had taken it out and lured Elder Su to speak, it really dispelled Jiang Taisho's suspicions. If it weren't for this, he would have been able to dispel the blue sky highest heavens. If that were the case, that old fellow Jiang would likely begin to suspect something. What should he do next? But now that things had come to this, it was about time things came to an end. A cold light flashed in Qin Yu's eyes. He said in a low voice, the poisons of the third level are only so-so. Since victory and defeat cannot be decided, I propose that we open the fourth level of the sealed pagoda. With these words, the entire hall fell silent. On the viewing platform, Elder Su also revealed a look of surprise. It had to be known that the poisons of the sealed pagoda increased in strength with each level, but every 3 levels was a different step. The fourth level of the sealed pagoda belonged to a completely different level. The might of the poisons was so terrifying that even a blue sea realm cultivator wouldn't dare to come in contact with them. To open the fourth level, was this surname Yao crazy? After Grandmaster Jiang recovered from his shock, a trace of understanding appeared in his heart. This surname Yao wanted to drag him down with him. Or, in other words, he wanted to force him to give up and use a draw as the result. After all, the poisons of the fourth level were far too terrifying. Within the entire Black Demon sect, there were only an extremely small number of people that had come into contact with poisons of this level. He sneered inwardly. This surname Yao had made a good plan, but unfortunately, he had missed out on the cards in his hands. Today, even if he had to suffer heavy losses, he would eliminate him. Good, I agree. Elder Zhou, please open the 4th level of the sealed pagoda. Grandmaster Zhang's voice was loud and clear. The entire hall fell deathly silent. For the fastest and most accurate novel reading, please visit Chapter 425. Elder Su sighed. He stood up and said, "The poisons of the 4th level of the sealed pagoda are incomparably dangerous. Even if you guard against them carefully, there is still a chance of accidents occurring." He turned and ordered, "Have everyone below the Blue Sea Realm withdraw from the main hall and wait in the plaza for the final result of the gambling fight." Perhaps everyone was a little unwilling to obey this order, but no one expressed any objections. They all started to leave. After all, compared to the safety of his life, watching the show and the like was nothing. Soon, the entire square was filled with loud chatter. After learning that the sealed pagoda was about to open the 4th level, countless cultivators were shocked. The sealed pagoda was an extremely terrifying treasure of the Black Demon sect. Or, it was more accurate to say that it was something that a poison master of the demonic path had placed in the Black Demon sect many years ago. How many poisons were there in the sealed pagoda? Perhaps not even the sect master or chief elder would be able to answer this question. But this didn't affect the incomparably terrifying status of the sealed pagoda in the hearts of the Black Demon sect disciples. 3,200 years ago, the Black Demon sect suffered a sect-destroying calamity. At that time, a group of the sect's powerhouses had been delayed outside. Just as the mountain gate was about to be broken and their teachings were about to be destroyed, the chief elder at that time used himself as a sacrifice to forcefully open the 7th level of the sealed pagoda. It was rumored that at that time, a phantom of a world had descended. After several breaths of time, the Black Demon sect hadn't been damaged at all. But all the cultivators that had been covered by the world phantom had vanished without a trace. As for it being a rumor, that was because almost none of the cultivators who witnessed this scene had survived. All life within 3,000 miles of the Black Demon sect had been exterminated. The 4th level of the sealed pagoda. I heard that this layer of poison can easily kill a blue sea cultivator. This is too terrifying. The two masters actually dared to use their bodies to test the 4th layer of poison. Wonderful. This is too wonderful. Soon, news of this matter spread out at an astonishing speed. It was like a bomb that caused a great storm in the Black Demon sect. Some of the experts from the sect who didn't care much about this matter were also shocked. After a moment of hesitation, they stood up and went straight to Heavenly Worship Hall. Today's gambling fight had already surpassed its original meaning. Two alchemists that dared to touch the 4th level of the sealed pagoda had aroused their attention. Elder Li. Elder Nan is here too. Elder Hu, long time no see. More and more people arrived at the Heavenly Worship Hall, but most of them greeted the crowd and nodded at them before sitting on the viewing platform in silence. Elder Zhou's authority was insufficient. He invited the chief elder as well as the other two leaders of the Internal Affairs Division. Only with the three of them together could they open the seal on the 4th level of the sealed pagoda. The unsealing speed was very slow. Based on the current situation, it would take at least 1 to 4 hours before it could be opened. Grandmaster Jiang could no longer maintain the demeanor of an expert. He sat cross-legged on the ground, seizing the time to heal the injuries in his body. Even if he had a trump card and was confident in dealing with the 4th layer of poison, he didn't dare to be careless. Otherwise, if he was not careful, not only would he lose the competition, he might even lose his life. Grandmaster Jiang tried his best to resolve the burning pain in his heart and lungs caused by the invasion of the poison. He helplessly thought to himself, he had actually been forced to this step by this surname Yao. He was so angry that he felt his teeth itch. After an hour, Elder Zhou and the others exchanged glances with each other and began to form hand seals with serious expressions on their faces. The sealed pagoda lightly trembled. A layer of green light appeared, completely covering it. Just one look at this green color was enough to make one's scalp go numb and feel a bone-deep fear. Poison. An extremely terrifying poison. In the Grand Hall, many Black Demon sect masters saw the fourth level of the sealed pagoda open for the first time. Their pupils shrank. Their divine senses were incomparably powerful. They could faintly feel the destructive strength contained within this green light. If at this moment this green light were to explode, their backs tightened and their eyes became even more dignified. They had a much clearer understanding of the sealed pagoda. Elder Zhou let out a long breath. His back was already soaked with sweat. All right. Perhaps because he was too nervous just now, his voice was a bit hoarse. This green light is the sealed pagoda's self-isolation. It won't allow the poison to leak out. But, just in case, let's speed things up. Elder Zhou said in a low voice, Grandmasters, is it too late to change your mind? Otherwise, I will have to take out the poison. Jiang Taisho coldly sneered. I will absolutely not withdraw, but Grandmaster Yao, you should be careful not to play too big and end up losing yourself. Without the crowd of sect cultivators around him, he no longer needed to disguise his attitude. After all, those that had the qualifications to remain in the Grand Hall were well aware of the entanglement of interests between him and that surname Yao. Grandmaster Yao clenched his jaws. You want me to admit defeat? Dream on. Good. Elder Zhou, please take out the poison. Jiang Taisho's eyes blazed with a cold light. Elder Zhou didn't dare to delay any longer. It was hard to imagine a method of isolating poison with poison. If something were to leak out, then it would be far more troublesome. He lifted his hand and grasped out. The green light rippled like water and 2 stones flew out. These were really 2 extremely ordinary stones. Each one was the size of a knuckle and their surface was ash gray. There were traces of weathering, of course, this was absolutely only an appearance. On the viewing platform, the Black Demon sect powerhouses all held their breath. Magic power revolved within their bodies, locking up all their pores and isolating themselves from the outside world. Elder Zhou and the other 2 had already drawn back dozens of feet the moment the stones were taken out. They raised their magic power barriers, their expressions as if they were facing a great enemy. Hold on. Grandmaster Yao suddenly said, it's just a trivial poison. So what if it comes from the 4th level of the sealed pagoda? I am confident I can resolve it. But today, I still have important arrangements to make, so I don't have time to waste with you. Grandmaster Jiang, do you dare to take out another poison and swallow both at the same time to determine victory or defeat? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone in the Grand Hall widened their eyes. A single 4th level poison was already terrifying enough. Yet, this surname Yao actually took the initiative to ask for 2, and to swallow both at the same time. Did this surname Yao want to commit suicide? Grandmaster Jiang was startled. His complexion darkened. This surname Yao was definitely doing this to force him to retreat. His thoughts raced. Grandmaster Jiang clenched his teeth and angrily said, what does 2 poisons count for? Grandmaster Yao, do you dare to challenge 3 poisons together with me? Surname Yao, since you are seeking death, then let me send you on your way. This time, even if I have to use up all my cards, I will make sure you die without a grave. Dying without a grave wasn't just a description, but a fact. If a corpse contained 3 poisons of the sealed pagoda's 4th level, then no matter where it was buried, it would be a malignant tumor. The surrounding area for hundreds of miles would suffer a calamity. It would be burned to ashes, sealed in a jar, and tossed deep into the sea. This was the only way to deal with it. Grandmaster Yao's voice was sharp. Jiang Taisho, do you not want to live? Good, 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 let's see who can survive. Take out 3 poisons. Elder Su said, do as the 2 grandmasters say. Elder Zhou hurriedly nodded. He raised his magic power shield and carefully approached. He lifted his hand and 4 more items flew out from the sealed pagoda's 4th level. 2 stalks of grass, 2 wildflowers, they looked the same as pebbles. They looked ordinary without any abnormalities at all. Moreover, the 2 stalks of grass were incomparably green and the 2 wildflowers even had faint traces of crystal, as if they had just been plucked from the ground. Qin Yu's eyes revealed a bit of surprise. This sealed pagoda's 4th level was very strange. It actually spat out these common things. If it weren't for everyone in the hall being on guard, he feared he would have thought of this as a senseless prank. Looking at the sealed pagoda that was covered in an oily green light, Qin Yu's eyes flashed. Grandmaster Jiang took a deep breath. He lifted his hand and pulled the pebbles, grass, and wildflowers to his side. As if they could feel the aura of life coming from his body, the pebbles, grass, and wildflowers all trembled at the same time. They turned into 3 tricolored gases of gray, blue, and red that flowed through his head and instantly submerged into his body. His body trembled and a dreadful gray color appeared between his eyebrows. Then, it spread out at an astonishing speed, covering his entire body in the blink of an eye. Jiang Taisho's entire body seemed to turn into a statue. If it weren't for the violent fluctuations of aura coming out from his body, one would have thought he had died. But soon, traces of a dark red color appeared on Jiang Taisho's flesh and blood. The cold and stiff gray surface of his body began to tremble. This dark red color was like hidden knives within his body, cutting through his gray skin. Dark red blood flowed out from the cracks in his body, but strangely, it didn't fall to the ground. Instead, beads of blood floated around him. As blood flowed out, the gray color on Jiang Taisho's body gradually faded away, restoring his original skin color. Elder Su relaxed a little and a bit of praise appeared in his eyes. Jiang Taisho was truly worthy of being an alchemy grandmaster that had obtained the approval of the sect master. His strength was truly unfathomable. Without mentioning anything else, just this method of forcing out the 3 poisons from the sealed pagoda was enough to give him the qualifications to rank as the #1 alchemist in the Black Demon sect. As for Yao Bin, Elder Su's eyes were indifferent, but he felt a bit of disdain in his heart. This person might be strong, but his origins were also mysterious. Even so what? In these past years, his performance in the sect had been mediocre, and the several alchemy grandmasters were ranked near the bottom. But now, he actually dared to move against Jiang Taisho's spirit plant transactions. He didn't know that this was the sect master's tacit approval, that the sect would divide the profits, that the chief elder would receive benefits, and that he would also receive a sum of hush money. If he didn't know anything and yet he dared to recklessly move against Jiang Taisho, then what was this other than seeking death? Did he really think that by relying on his groundless background, he could rampage through the sect? The Black Demon sect powerhouses in the hall all revealed looks of admiration. Jiang Taisho truly lived up to his reputation. In today's gambling fight, it was already a foregone conclusion that he would be the #1 alchemist in the sect. Some people looked at Grandmaster Yao. He seemed to be scared silly. He stared at the 3 poisons in front of him, not moving at all. A mocking look appeared in his eyes. Was there any use in waiting? Now that the gambling fight had begun, even if he wanted to admit defeat, it was already too late. After several glances, no one paid any more attention to him. In their eyes, this person that would soon become a corpse was already worthless. As for Jiang Taisho, what method could they use to establish a relationship with him? Such an alchemy grandmaster, such a detoxification grandmaster, there was no one that didn't want to be on good terms with him. The 14th minute. He let out a deep breath. Grandmaster Zhang's eyelids trembled as he struggled to open them. His entire body had thinned and his complexion was as white as paper. His aura was extremely weak. His eyes were filled with exhaustion, but even more so, there was endless pride in them. The reason was simple. He, Jiang Taisho, was the only alchemist in the entire Black Demon sect that could resolve the 3 poisons of the Sealed Pagoda's 4th level. Outside his body, the floating beads of blood began to tremble. They began to self-destruct, turning into powder along with the poisons within. For the fastest and most error-free novel reading, please visit Chapter 426. Jiang Taisho's eyes flashed with heartache and fear. Then, he looked at Grandmaster Yao and his lips curved up in a smile. What is Grandmaster Yao waiting for? Even if you admit defeat, I will still have you swallow these 3 poisons. A gambling fight must be fair, right? Elder Su stood up. He said, Grandmaster Yao, the last gambling fight was proposed by you. Since Grandmaster Jiang has already completed it, you have no reason to refuse. This was a naked threat. In the hall, there was a chorus of agreement. Everyone looked at Grandmaster Yao with cold indifference. The time limit was approaching. This surname Yao would lose without a doubt, and in today's situation, if he lost, he would die. If this surname Yao died, it would give them a chance to be on good terms with Jiang Taisho. That would be perfect. There's still 1 minute. Elder Zhou said, a bit of regret in his eyes. Yao Bin could be considered an alchemy grandmaster with considerable strength. If he were to die like this in internal strife, that would be too much of a pity. But since this matter was already decided, he could only maintain his silence. Time slowly passed. The hall gradually quieted down. All eyes gathered on him, an invisible pressure that nearly caused the air to freeze. Jiang Taisho smiled, his eyes icy cold. He wanted to use Yao Bin's death today to sound the alarm for everyone. The spirit plant trade could only be done by him. Whoever wanted to interfere, would die. The final 20 seconds. Grandmaster Yao finally moved. He lightly sighed, a bit of helplessness in his voice. He lifted a hand and pulled the stones, grass, and wildflowers to his side. The 3 objects turned into streams of energy that fused into his body through his nose and mouth. As he breathed, his hands turned a deathly gray. Elder Su secretly sneered. This surname Yao was quite tactful. If he had stubbornly refused to swallow the poisons, then their attacks wouldn't have been too gentle. He lightly coughed and said, Grandmaster Yao can be considered a trustworthy person. He used his own life to complete the gambling fight agreement. Then, I hope that Grandmaster Jiang can show mercy and not bring disaster to Grandmaster Yao's family and friends. Jiang Taisho shook his head and sighed. I don't want to cause casualties to my fellow disciples, but Grandmaster Yao has gone too far, so I have no choice but to fight back. Elder Su, rest assured that I will not implicate you in this matter. Let this matter end with Grandmaster Yao's death. This was what he ought to do. Since he had already obtained the final victory and put the enemy to death, there was no harm in showing a little bit of mercy. What's more, that surnamed Yao was a loner. How could he possibly have any relatives or friends? The hall was filled with praise. Everyone expressed their admiration towards Grandmaster Zhang's broad-mindedness and character. There were even some people who subtly sent out invitations. For example, they just so happened to have some spirit medicines, and because they respected the Grandmaster, they were willing to send them to the Grandmaster's palace to help him recover as soon as possible. The situation was peaceful, and all the killing intent and solemnity were swept away in an instant. Everyone's face was brimming with smiles. Elder Zhou secretly shook his head. He waved his hand and had the cultivators from the Internal Affairs Division put on protective suits to deal with Grandmaster Yao's corpse. With so much poison contained within, it was naturally impossible to casually bury it. Fortunately, the sect had experience in dealing with similar situations, so it should be fine as long as they were careful. For Internal Affairs Division cultivators wearing thick protective suits gulped as they carefully reached out towards Grandmaster Yao's corpse. The corpse suddenly opened its eyes and said without expression, "What do you want to do?" "Ah!" The 4 Internal Affairs Division cultivators were frightened. They cried out as they scrambled backwards. They had never heard of a person that died from poison turning into a zombie before. This movement instantly attracted the attention of everyone in the hall. As they looked at the resurrected Grandmaster Yao, everyone had wonderful complexions. "Pa!" The hourglass fell into Grandmaster Yao's hands. He looked down and nodded in satisfaction. "Not bad, there's still a grain of sand left. In other words, I haven't lost yet. Isn't that right, Elder Zhou?" Elder Zhou awoke from his reverie, his eyes filled with shock. He took a deep breath and said, "As long as there's a grain of sand left, then it's within the stipulated time limit." Grandmaster Yao shook the hourglass. As the grains of sand collided with the bottle, they emitted a faint sound that grated on the ears. Luckily, there's only 1 grain of sand left. He looked up at the stunned Jiang Taisho and faintly smiled. "Grandmaster Jiang, you seem to be celebrating too early." "Impossible. How could you possibly still be alive?" Jiang Taisho nearly went crazy. He had used his greatest trump card to resolve 3 poisons, so what did this surname Yao rely on to do so? Grandmaster Yao lightly said, "But I am indeed still alive." There was silence in the hall. Everyone was silent. This sudden turn of events caused them to be unable to react for a moment. Elder Su's heart shook. He looked at Grandmaster Yao and squeezed out a smile. "Grandmaster Yao's methods are amazing. You were actually able to resist 3 poisons of the sealed pagoda's 4th level. I truly admire you. However, although Grandmaster has woken up within the time limit, I can see that your flesh and blood is still gray, the poisons have yet to be resolved. Then, in the end, Grandmaster Jiang has won this gambling fight." Jiang Taisho took a deep breath. He clenched his teeth and said, "That's right, I still won." He hadn't been able to kill this surname Yao and had even used his own trump card. Even if he could obtain some compensation, the difference was far too great. This was a great loss. At this time, there were disagreements in the hall. Although Grandmaster Yao was defeated, he was still honorable. To be able to suppress 3 poisons of the sealed pagoda's 4th level, this method is amazing enough. To be able to witness such a marvelous battle between 2 Grandmasters today, this trip really wasn't made in vain. He hadn't died and he had suppressed the poisons, these 2 points were enough to change their attitudes. Grandmaster Yao could also invest in him. Jiang Taisho's complexion paled and his face darkened like rain. How could he not feel the change in these people's attitudes? Although he didn't say anything, he was cursing several hundred times in his heart. Grandmaster Yao lightly said, "Elder Su, I discovered that your eyesight isn't very good. Just now you said that I died and now you say that I lost." Beneath the black robes, his eyes were cold. "As a sect elder, I am responsible for handling a portion of the sect's affairs. If my eyes aren't useful, then I am truly worried." The hall fell silent once more. These words weren't just impolite, they were a direct slap to the face. Moreover, the one being slapped was Elder Su. Who didn't know that this surname Su was a trusted aide of the chief elder? Was Grandmaster Yao not afraid of stirring up trouble for himself? Elder Sue's complexion darkened. I indeed didn't see clearly before, but the facts are before my eyes. Does Grandmaster Yao wish to deny it? Grandmaster Yao sneered. He lifted a hand. Elder Sue, are you talking about this? His 5 fingers moved and the surface of his skin instantly shattered. Bits and pieces of skin fell through the cracks of his fingers, revealing incomparably white skin. There was no sign of being poisoned at all. Elder Sue, did you see it clearly? Of course, if you don't believe me, you can have the Internal Affairs Division verify it and see whether or not I am right. Grandmaster Yao coldly said. Elder Sue sucked in a deep breath. Elder Zhou. An Internal Affairs Division cultivator stepped forwards, giving the green light. Grandmaster Yao lightly said, Elder Sue, I recommend that you take a light avoiding pill. It might be able to cure your eye disease. Those who had eyes but couldn't see were born with a natural fear of light. Even if their eyes were tightly shut, they would still cry without end. The light-avoiding pill was born for this reason. You. Elder Sue was enraged. But, it was unknown what he was thinking, but he didn't say anything. Grandmaster Yao stepped forwards. He wasn't as tall as Jiang Taisho, but at this time he gave off the feeling that he was looking down at him. Jiang Taisho's complexion stiffened. His body shivered, as if he had guessed what he was going to say. Admit defeat, he could only admit defeat. This surname Yao bastard, this bastard was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Everything that had happened before had been fake. It was laughable that he had been miserably deceived. Not only had he taken the initiative to deliver precious spirit plant seeds, but he had even used his greatest trump card. Jiang Taisho already expected that his reputation would fall to the ground and that this surname Yao would use him as a stepping stone. Unwillingness, resentment, all of this crazily gnawed at Jiang Taisho's heart. But, he still maintained his calm and didn't let his anger overwhelm his mind. He had to admit defeat in the gambling fight. Even if he suffered a crushing defeat, even if he was ridiculed, it was still better than dying on the spot. He couldn't be goaded by this surname Yao. If he continued the gambling fight, he would definitely die. Grandmaster Yao walked forwards. Before he could speak, Grandmaster Jiang let out a deep breath and said, I admit defeat. His eyes revealed a mocking look. Even if you put on such an act, so what? I'm still alive. As long as I'm alive, there are infinite possibilities. What does a momentary victory and defeat matter? Let's just wait and see. Surname Yao, are you stunned and disappointed right now? But what left Jiang Taisho puzzled was that this surname Yao didn't seem disappointed at all. Instead, beneath his black robes, his eyes turned strange. As if he were watching some joke. This surname Yao bastard, you are still trying to goad me into fighting. If you want to mock me, then mock me. I absolutely won't fall for your tricks. Grandmaster Yao suddenly said, Grandmaster Jiang, do you think that I will mock you and goad you into continuing the gambling fight with me? Right now, are you praising your own calm and decisiveness, or are you even trying to see my disappointed expression when I fail to achieve my goal? Jiang Taisho fiercely looked up. What do you mean? Grandmaster Yao smiled. I don't mean anything. I just want to remind Grandmaster Jiang not to be too confident in yourself. It's better to check everything first. A chill suddenly gushed out from the depths of his heart. Jiang Taisho stiffened and his eyes subconsciously widened. He fiercely threw himself forwards, snatching away the poison detection magic tool that the Internal Affairs Division cultivators used and placing it on his body. Green light. Jiang Taisho clenched his teeth. That damned Yao Bin, he actually dared to tease him. At this time, 3 consecutive beeps sounded out from the detection magic tool. The green light began to flash faster and faster. Then, a trace of blood red appeared, cleanly erasing all of the green light. Jiang Taisho grasped his neck with both hands. Breathing became incomparably difficult. His eyes were filled with despair and hatred. He struggled to walk towards Grandmaster Yao, but after several steps he froze in place. A deep and cold gray color filled with despair surged out like a tsunami. In the blink of an eye, it completely covered his flesh and blood. Then, with light cracking sounds, his corpse broke into countless pieces. Dead, in the deathly silence of the hall, Grandmaster Yao swept his eyes around and said, "Don't blame me for not reminding everyone, but as long as the host is alive, this poison can spread through the air. So, those that approached Grandmaster Jiang just now, you had best hurry up and check yourself, otherwise it will be too late." Everyone was thrown into chaos. Those that were closest to Grandmaster Jiang just now, the ones that spoke the most warmly, all had green faces. Grandmaster Yao cupped his hands together. "Elder Zhou, please remember to have the Internal Affairs Division cultivators send over the gambling stakes I won. Goodbye." Tuba and Tutu had excited expressions, their nostrils nearly reaching the heavens. They looked down at the chaotic crowd, their eyes filled with disdain. Chapter 427. The gambling match at Heavenweight Temple came to an end. Grandmaster Yao had the last laugh. Jiang Taisho's body had turned to ash and the entire Black Demon sect was filled with mourning. According to statistics, dozens of Dao companions had turned against each other because their families had gone bankrupt. As for the number of lovers that broke up, it was impossible to calculate. The culprit who had caused all this was receiving the biggest profit of his life through opportunistic means. "Greetings, Grandmaster Yao." The fat middle-aged cultivator smiled, his face full of joy. He presented a jade box with both hands. "This is Grandmaster's earnings from participating in the betting. The total is 857,250,000 spirit stones. This lowly one has taken the liberty of gathering 860 million spirit stones for Grandmaster. I ask Grandmaster to take a look." Qin Yu's heart skipped a beat and he revealed a stunned expression. Although he knew he would make a great profit this time, he never imagined it would be such a terrifying number. The odds were 1/5. Even if he increased it by 5 times, it was still far from this number. "Grandmaster Yao, is there something wrong?" the fat cultivator nervously asked. Could it be that his actions weren't enough to cause this surname Yao to be dissatisfied? But what he gave now was the greatest sincerity within his authority. It wasn't that he couldn't ask for more, but he would need to apply to the higher-ups. Qin Yu regained his composure. He waved his hand. "No, I was just thinking of something else. Since that's the case, I will accept it." Inside the jade box were 9 completely black cards. Runes flowed around them, exuding a mysterious and noble aura. These spirit stone cards were issued by the demonic sect and had absolute authority throughout the entire land of divinity and demons. They could be used anywhere and were the most convenient. Qin Yu swept through them with his divine sense. There weren't any problems with the number of spirit stones. He smiled. With this terrifying amount of spirit stones, it would be much easier to purchase the souls and blood of high-level monster beasts in the future. The cultivator in charge of the betting seemed simple and honest, but the truth was that his thoughts were clear. He simply stood up and bid his farewells. "Grandmaster Yao, the transaction between us has been completed. If there is nothing else, I will bid my farewells. Take care." Qin Yu played around with the jade box. He casually placed it on the table. "Tuba, come in." Tuba strode in and fell to his knees. "Your Highness. So many spirit stones. Is it because of you?" "Yes, Your Highness." "Where did it come from?" Tuba grinned. "Your Highness should know that our Titan race doesn't use spirit stones for cultivation. After staying in the infinite realm for so many years, we slowly accumulated some. The great shaman told me to take it with me and hand it to you when you need it. This time, there was a bet, so I acted on my own accord. Please forgive me, Your Highness. Qin Yu smiled. These spirit stones will indeed be useful to me in the future. Consider me owing your Titan race a favor. Tuba was overjoyed. Thank you, Your Highness. Before he came here, he had been reminded by the great priest that making Her Highness have a good impression of the giant tribe was the best way to save the tribe. There was no need to mention anything else. Otherwise, it would only make Her Highness feel pressured and annoyed. Qin Yu tapped his finger on the table. His eyes flashed. Tuba, there is something I need you to do. A moment later, a puzzled Tuba left the palace and rushed straight to Jiang Taishu's residence. Although he didn't understand why Her Highness would shelter the people around Jiang Taishu, he didn't ask. Her Highness had his own reasons for doing this. Putting away the jade box, Qin Yu leaned back in his chair. He closed his eyes and whispered, "It seems that the Black Demon sect hasn't made a decision on how to proceed with the agreement. This has given me a chance to learn the truth." 3 days later, as Qin Yu was cultivating, Tuba came in to report that Elder Su had arrived. Qin Yu opened his eyes, a sharp light flashing in them. He hadn't gone into seclusion to cultivate because he had been waiting for this matter. Have him wait in the main hall for a moment. I'll tidy up and come. After a moment, Qin Yu stepped into the main hall. He lightly said, "Elder Su, may I ask why you have come here today?" Although his attitude was a bit cold, he was at least calm and not directly aggressive. This caused Su Song's heart to relax and his expression to become calm. Greetings, Grandmaster Yao. The reason I came here today is because I hope to discuss with Grandmaster about the transaction of spirit plant materials. Qin Yu nodded. I have already expected this. There is no need to be in a hurry. Let's discuss this after drinking a cup of tea. He clapped his hands. 2 beautiful maids lowered their heads and walked into the main hall, each of them offering a cup of hot tea. Su Song didn't know what this surname Yao was planning, but his expression didn't change. He lowered his head and took a sip, praising, "Good tea." Qin Yu lightly said, "The tea is good, but for it to have such a taste, it is all thanks to these 2 maids. Their tea brewing skills are superb." Su Song had long since put away his contempt for Yao Bin. He clearly wouldn't say such things for no reason. He looked up at the 2 maids. Soon, the hand holding the teacup tightened and a gloomy light appeared in Su Song's eyes. Qin Yu smiled. You can leave. After the 2 maids left, he continued to say, "It seems that Elder Su also knows those 2. Su Song slowly said, "Those 2 maids seem to have been Grandmaster Zhang's people in the past." That's right. In the gambling match at Heavenweight Hall, Grandmaster Jiang lost his life. Every time I think about it, I feel uneasy and guilty. Unfortunately, there is nothing I can do to change the situation. I could only take in some of Grandmaster Jiang's old followers so that they won't be bullied. Su Song was silent for a long time. He sighed. Grandmaster Yao's wisdom surpasses that of others. You should have already guessed the true purpose of my visit today. I wonder if Grandmaster has an answer. Qin Yu put down his teacup. It's the same as before. The conditions that Jiang Taishu agreed to in the past are still as before. In addition, I can give Chief Elder an additional 10% of the profits. As he spoke, there was a flash of light in his hand. He took out a card and placed it on the table. This is a little token of my appreciation. I ask Elder Su to accept it and say a few good words for me. Su Song hesitated for a moment. He forced a smile. Grandmaster Yao's methods are good. I admire you. I believe that the sect should accept this result. Here, I congratulate Grandmaster in advance. I hope that you will have a boundless source of wealth in the future. Su Song casually took the card and swept it with his divine sense. He was a bit more satisfied. This surname Yao wasn't someone who didn't know when to back down. After speaking a few more words, Qin Yu personally stood up and sent Su Song out of the hole. He turned and sat back down. After drinking several more mouthfuls of tea, he frowned, a thoughtful expression on his face. For the time being, the matter of Jiang Taishuo's death had been suppressed. But, because of this matter, it was a fact that he had offended the chief elder and the others. Compared to these people, his current strength was still a bit weak. It was best for him to find a way to increase his own strength. Like this, even if something unexpected happened in the future, he would have something to rely on. Qin Yu didn't think that he could sit back and relax just because of the gambling match at Heavenweight Hole. In front of a true powerhouse, the strength he displayed was nothing at all. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He left behind a sentence and then entered the training chamber. He flipped his hand and took out a storage ring. With a flick of his sleeve, a brilliant light sprinkled down. Countless blue veins appeared, piling up in a corner of the chamber. These blue veins were the harvests that Qin Yu had obtained in the infinite realm. They were the materials he used to refine the superstorm flow. After being suppressed by the rules of the infinite realm and struggling to survive, the terrifying life form in the mountain valley still possessed a terrifying strength. In its peak, it was absolutely inconceivable. With the materials provided by that terrifying life form, refining the superstorm flow was more than enough to become a terrifying hidden card in Qin Yu's hands. Although this hidden card could only be used once, it should be enough to protect himself. He lifted his hand and a blue vein flew out, falling into his hand. He raised his hand and a bead of blood condensed on his fingertip, pouring it into the vein. A day later, a pale-faced Qin Yu looked at the several dozen blue veins that he had finished refining. He bitterly smiled. The materials provided by that terrifying life form were truly incomparably powerful. Now that he had cultivated the undying true demon body, his blood essence was incomparably powerful. Even after spending an entire day, he was only able to refine this much. The difficulty of this far surpassed his imagination. Optimistically estimating, if he wanted to refine this superstorm flow, he would need at least 2 to 3 months of sleepless nights. Indeed, a hidden card wasn't so easy to obtain. Qin Yu shook his head. He swallowed down a pill and closed his eyes to refine it, restoring the blood essence he had lost. Luckily, the undying true demon body recovered at an extremely fast rate. If it were anyone else, they would likely be holding onto a pile of blue veins and weeping bitterly. A month later, Qin Yu hurriedly left seclusion. He refined several furnaces of pills to exchange for spirit plant materials and then rushed into his training chamber. In the blink of an eye, nearly 2 months passed. Within the chamber, Qin Yu rapidly formed hand seals with his hands. A blue vein in front of him flashed with a bright red light and a rich infernal energy tumbled around it. Suddenly, there was a humming sound. The tumbling infernal energy stabilized and turned pitch black, as if it were forged from some sort of metal. Success! Qin Yu was pleasantly surprised. He took a deep breath and flicked his sleeves, taking out the dense blue veins. There were exactly 1024 of them. At this time, these blue veins seemed to produce some sort of response. They automatically flew up and floated above Qin Yu's head. Roar! With a tyrannical roar, the phantom of a giant beast appeared from between these blue veins. This was that terrifying life form from the Infinite Realm's mountain valley. It reared its head back and roared. Although it was only a phantom, it released an aura that made one's heart race. Space violently fluctuated and tiny cracks rapidly appeared. Paw, paw, giant runes appeared on the walls of the training chamber before they began to shatter. The array formation that sealed the chamber simply couldn't withstand the strength of this phantom. Qin Yu's complexion changed. With a thought, the giant beast phantom emitted an unwilling roar before disappearing from sight. The 1024 refined blue veins were taken into the token space. The terrifying aura rapidly dissipated. Qin Yu looked at the chamber that seemed to have experienced a great calamity. His smile grew wider and wider until he finally threw his head back and laughed out loud. Billowing waves of laughter reverberated through the chamber. Superstorm Flow, this was truly Superstorm Flow. Its strength was far more terrifying than he had imagined. It could actually summon a phantom that possessed a portion of the terrifying life-form strength. Although he couldn't test the true might of this Superstorm Flow, even if he used his knees to feel it, he knew just how savage it was. Qin Yu had an intuition that once he detonated this Superstorm Flow, anyone below the Calamity Immortal Realm who touched it would die. Great Hidden Card. Super Great Hidden Card. But after his excitement passed, Qin Yu began to worry. This Superstorm Flow was somewhat different from the ones he had refined before. If he wanted to detonate it, he needed to provide enough blood vitality. According to Qin Yu's estimation, if he really did detonate it, he would be sucked dry. Perhaps he wouldn't die, but there was over a 90% chance he would become a piece of wood that couldn't move. This was a bit awkward. It was true that Superstorm Flow could save his life, but if he really did destroy his enemy, Qin Yu would become a piece of meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. After thinking for a long time, Qin Yu still couldn't find a way to solve this problem. The only way was if his undying true demon body could advance again in a short period of time. But this was clearly impossible. I used it for nearly 3 months and lost several barrels of blood. Now you're telling me that after using it, there is an 80% chance I'll die. Qin Yu was annoyed. He clenched his teeth and said, since just relying on Superstorm Flow isn't enough, I'll have to add some other methods. Thinking about it, Qin Yu discovered that although he had many good things and his cultivation methods were heaven-defying, it was impossible for his strength to rise so much in a short period of time. Only the monster-raising mystic art had a chance. If he could obtain enough high-level monster beast souls and blood to complete the first stage of breeding, the purple-back blue-wing ants would become much stronger. At that time, even if he activated Superstorm Flow, he could use its strength to escape. The Black Demon sect had obtained the fake monster-raising mystic art and had begun to restrict high-level monster beast souls and blood. But now, as the #1 alchemist in the Black Demon sect, it shouldn't be a problem for him to obtain some souls and blood to experiment with pills, right? Qin Yu's thoughts raced. Soon, his eyes brightened as he came up with a plan. The next day, Tuba took several spirit stone cards that Qin Yu gave him and left the Black Demon sect, changing his appearance once more. At nearly the same time, Qin Yu arrived at the exchange hall and requested to purchase several high-level monster beast souls and blood. As expected, a duty elder of the exchange hall soon appeared and invited him into the inner hall to discuss the details. After the guest and host were seated, the duty elder smiled and said, Grandmaster Yao, may I ask why you wish to exchange for high-level monster beast souls and blood? His eyes flashed. He casually said, if I'm not wrong, it seems that Grandmaster came to the exchange hall not too long ago to inquire about high-level monster beast souls and blood. Qin Yu's voice was low and deep, faintly revealing a bit of dissatisfaction. I need high-level monster beast souls and blood to experiment with pills. When I inquired before, I was told that the sect had already prohibited me from exchanging for them. I didn't think too much about it, but when I sent people out to buy them, they couldn't. With no other choice, I could only make another trip and ask when you will be able to resume exchanging for them. In the past, he had indeed sent Tuba with his token to go out of the Black Demon sect to purchase the materials needed to refine pills. If the duty elder had investigated this, then it would match up. And indeed, most of the vigilance in the duty elder's eyes faded away. His smile became even more cordial. So it's like this. He hesitated for a moment and said, I won't hide it from Grandmaster. Recently, because of some matters in the sect, we need to consume a massive amount of high-level monster beast souls and blood. So, we won't be able to restore the supply in a short period of time. Qin Yu's voice was ice-cold. Will my research come to a halt because of this? The duty elder waved his hand. Grandmaster, there is no need to worry. If it were anyone else, I wouldn't dare to agree. But Grandmaster's strength is outstanding. If you make a breakthrough in your research, it will be greatly beneficial to my Black Demon sect. So, I will immediately report this. If Grandmaster doesn't need too much, perhaps he can apply 4 types. At least 4 types of high-level monster beast souls and blood. Otherwise, there is no way for me to continue my experiments. Qin Yu slowly said after a moment of thought. The duty elder revealed an awkward expression. Very well, I will try my best. A moment later, the duty elder returned, a smile on his face. Grandmaster Yao, the application has been approved. The 4 types of high-level monster beast souls and blood are here. As for their information and serial numbers, they are all in the jade slips inside. As he spoke, he placed a silver-white metal storage box on the table. Qin Yu opened it and examined it. After determining that there was nothing wrong, he said, Today, I owe Elder a favor. If there is anything you need me for in the future, feel free to ask. The duty elder's smile became even brighter. Then, I must thank Grandmaster. He didn't stay any longer. After paying for the exchange, Qin Yu left the great exchange hall. Beneath the black robes, he revealed a puzzled expression. He thought that there would be some twists and turns during the exchange process. Even if the Black Demon sect agreed, they would still reduce the number of exchanges. He never imagined that things would go so smoothly. Did the Black Demon sect really place such importance on him, the actual number 1 alchemist? Or was there some other secret to this? Shaking his head, Qin Yu suppressed the confusion in his heart. No matter what was said, it was a fact that he had obtained 4 types of high-level monster beast souls and blood. Somewhere in the Black Demon sect's forbidden land. The chief elder cupped his hands together. Sect Master, why did you agree to exchange for the high-level monster beast souls and blood for Yao Bin? You must know that the second step of training has reached a critical moment and there isn't much left in the sect's inventory. Demonic energy lingered around him. One could faintly see a figure sitting cross-legged. He slowly opened his eyes and a sharp light flashed in them. The hidden dangers in my body have never been completely removed. In the past, I obtained a method that might be able to solve this problem once and for all. But this method requires the use of several types of highly toxic poisons. If I am a little careless, the consequences will be even more severe. That is why I have delayed it until today. The chief elder was overjoyed. Sect Master's intention is to borrow Yao Bin's hand to help you eliminate the worries of the poison. That's wonderful. If Sect Master can be completely healed, my Black Demon sect will be as stable as Mount Tai. This matter still requires some preparations. Do not disturb me during this time. The Black Demon sect Master's voice was calm, not allowing any refusal. Take care of Yao Bin. Do not allow any accidents. The chief elder bowed. Yes. Chapter 428. Steward Su Xing had been acting a bit strange recently. He rarely went out to patrol, leaving behind all matters of interrogating criminals and locking himself up in his room all day. When he occasionally came out, he would appear absent-minded. Many subordinates secretly guessed that the usually cold and aloof Lord Steward had also begun to yearn for love. But they hadn't heard of any young miss that the steward had come into contact with these past days. The confused subordinates began to speculate as much as they could. Of course, none of their guesses were close to the correct one. Su Xing absolutely wasn't yearning for love, but was considering something far more important than this. For instance, his future, for instance, his heart that had already accepted its fate. In Heavenweight Temple's gambling fight, if one were to seriously think about it, Su Xing should be the most nervous person. He was also the Black Demon sect cultivator whose profits were second only to Qin Yu. When he first learned that Jiang Taisho had mentioned the gambling fight, Su Xing had been frightened into a cold sweat. He thought that this surname Ning was finished and he would be buried with him. After all, although Jiang Taisho hadn't fought much, his cruel and merciless style was clear in the eyes of this old man from the Black Demon sect. After a period of despair and resentment, Su Xing hardened his heart and threw everything he had into the gambling pit, betting that this surname Ning would win. This was his only choice. Otherwise, if this surname Ning was killed, he would absolutely be buried with him. What use would it be if he left behind so many spirit stones? But the result was, he actually won. Standing in the square outside Heavenweight Temple, Su Xing would never forget the tears of joy that flowed down his face when this surname Ning came back to life and overturned the entire situation. Only those who had been close to death would understand how precious life was. After receiving the spirit stones he won from the gambling pit, Su Xing was only happy for a few days. Then, he began to think about his future life. He originally thought that after being controlled by this giant monster sect remnant, even if he managed to keep his life, he would fall into a situation where he would never see the light of day for the rest of his life. But who would have thought that he would actually hug onto such an incomparably thick thigh? Tuba and Tutu, these two barbarians, had strength comparable to a blue sea. And most importantly, Su Xing was well aware of Qin Yu's background. Where did these two barbarians come from? This surname Ning was covered with secrets. Although secrets sometimes represented danger, they could also be lucky chances. At the very least, he knew that this surname Ning's alchemy skills could hang on to Jiang Taisho. Although he didn't know what his cultivation was like, if he could subdue these two blue sea-level barbarians, how could he be weak? If he had a chance to hug onto this thigh, he might be able to reach the peak of his life and break free of his destiny. If he could, he would have this thigh and he would reach the peak of his future. There was a chance. But what left Su Xing depressed was that after the gambling fight at Heavenweight Temple, that surnamed Ning had gone into seclusion and had no intention of summoning him. Thinking about it, Xiao Chen was nothing more than a chess piece he had casually taken in. Xiao Chen had never considered using Xiao Chen more. Just as Su Xing was feeling anxious and distressed, someone knocked on the door. His face sank and he said coldly, "Come in." A subordinate had a restless expression. Even a fool could see that the steward was in a bad mood right now. But since he had received orders before, he didn't dare to delay. He braced himself and said, "Steward, Grand Master Yao has sent someone here. He said he has something to tell us. What did you say?" Su Xing stood up abruptly. His body shivered as he nearly cried. "Grand Master Yao has sent someone. Ha 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 ha. Good, that's great." Su Xing reached out and patted him on the shoulder. "Well done, you have a bright future ahead of you." After he finished speaking, he ran out, leaving behind a dumbfounded subordinate. He didn't know when the manager had become so temperamental. At the main entrance of the residence, Su Xing looked at the person in front of him and frowned. "Aren't you Jiang Taisho's disciple? Are you here to make fun of me?" "Steward Su, please do not misunderstand. I have already been accepted as a disciple by Grandmaster Yao." Today, Grandmaster Yao ordered me to come here and ask Steward to send several prisoners over to be used for experiments. Su Xing's heart skipped a beat. He maintained his composure and said, "So that's how it is. Brother has actually become Grandmaster Yao's disciple. That really makes one envious. Please wait here for a moment, I will immediately go to the dungeon to pick you up." As he walked towards the dungeon, Su Xing's thoughts raced. The surname Ning had replaced the surname Yao, so there was simply no need for the prisoner to conduct experiments. Moreover, even if he could use it, there was no need to go through so much trouble to send someone to inform him. If they just sent a direct message, would he dare to refuse? There was definitely something here, and it definitely wasn't small, otherwise this surname Ning wouldn't be so careful. If this surname Ning wanted to use him for this sort of matter, didn't that mean that he was in fact highly regarded by this surname Ning? Su Xing's spirits rose. His feet began to move like a tiger. This was an excellent chance for him to handle this matter beautifully and win the approval of this surname Ning. An hour later, Su Xing brought several prisoners to Grandmaster Yao's residence. As he thought about the gloomy expression of the chief steward just now, Su Xing sneered inwardly. In the past, he had used the matter of sending the prisoners to beat him up, and now he wanted to take back this task so that he could be on good terms with Grandmaster Yao. Humph, a single sentence of "Grandmaster appointed me to send the prisoners over" had left this old fart speechless. Just thinking about it made him happy. As long as he could truly become a Grandmaster, there would surely be more opportunities like this in the future. Su Xing took a deep breath. He absolutely could not miss out on this chance. After the report, the prisoners were taken away. As expected, Su Xing obtained the chance to see Grandmaster Yao. He quickly entered the main hall and fell to his knees, respectfully bowing. Subordinate greets Master. Congratulations on winning the gambling fight and becoming the #1 alchemist. Qin, you had a light expression. Rise. The reason I called you here today is because there is something I need you to do. Bring this jade slip outside the Black Demon sect and crush it. Remember, I do not wish for a second person to know of this matter. Su Xing cupped his hands together. This subordinate understands. He received the jade slip with both hands and carefully put it away. Is there anything else Master needs? Just this one. Go. Su Xing bowed once more. He drew back several steps and then turned to leave. After sending away his subordinates, Su Xing walked out of the sect. His complexion was cloudy and uncertain. The matter that this surname Ning gave him was beyond his expectations. He only needed to bring a jade slip out of the sect and crush it. This matter was much simpler than he had imagined. But there was a high chance that there was some great danger hidden within. Who was this surname Ning? He was a remnant of the giant monster sect, and his enmity with the Black Demon sect was as deep as the sea. Once he crushed the jade slip, it might represent a storm of blood. But if he didn't, Su Xing clenched his teeth. He wasn't a saint who would sacrifice himself to save others. Moreover, in the Black Demon sect, he didn't have too many people that he cared about. At most, if he really did attract a disaster, he would think of a way to protect the several trusted aides that followed him. Pooey. Su Xing, you idiot, this is the best way to prove your loyalty. If you do this, this surname Ning will definitely approve of you. Schwa. After a moment of hesitation, Su Xing's speed rose and he soon arrived at the exit of the sect. He was the steward of the dungeon and was responsible for interrogating those that committed crimes within and outside the sect. Although he didn't have much authority, no one wanted to offend him. After all, no one knew whether or not they would end up in the dungeon one day. Even if they were fine, there was always a chance that their relatives or friends would be there, right? Steward Su, where are you going? A Black Demon sect cultivator greeted him with a smile. Su Sheng strangely chuckled. Brothers, you should know that a place like the dungeon is far too depressing. I've been feeling a bit uncomfortable recently, so I'm going out to vent my frustrations and quell the fire in my heart. Ha, I understand. Steward Su must have suffered a lot to interrogate criminals for the sect. The cultivator lowered his voice. I know a good place that will definitely satisfy Steward Su. The two whispered to each other and then laughed together, a tacit understanding on their faces. Su Sheng cupped his hands together. Brothers, I will be leaving first. In the future, when I have a bit more experience, I will come and drink a cup with you all. He easily left the sect and flew to a place where there was no one around. Su Sheng took out a jade slip and crushed it to powder with his fingers. After doing this, he let out a long breath of relief. The last bit of worry in his heart also dissipated. In any case, he had already done what he wanted to do. No matter what the consequences were, he would just let them be. After hesitating for a moment, Su Sheng turned into a beam of light and flew straight towards the brothel of pleasure. Since he was putting on a show, he might as well go through with it. It just so happened that the pressure on his heart had been too great recently and he was feeling haggard. He might as well take this chance to cheer himself up. Hee, little monsters, your great-uncle Su is here. In the grand hall, Qin Yu opened his eyes, a smile on his face. Su Sheng was an extremely intelligent person. He would likely be able to think of many things from a single jade slip. If he could honestly follow orders while his thoughts were racing, then he could be considered trustworthy. The matter of the jade slip was originally meant to test him. Even if Su Sheng had second thoughts, he still wouldn't reveal anything. However, it was best if everything went smoothly. Tubish should have received the message by now and he could avoid buying the 4 types of high-level monster beast souls and blood. As for why he had gone through so much trouble to have Su Sheng run out of the Black Demon sect to do this, it was to prevent any accidents. As for why he had gone through so much trouble to have Su Sheng run out of the Black Demon sect to do this, it was to guard against the unexpected. The monster-raising mystic art involved a great deal. If it were him, he would have to be extremely careful in a situation where he had the necessary conditions. He couldn't guarantee that he had completely dispelled all of the Black Demon sect's worries about him exchanging for souls and blood. There was nothing wrong with being careful. The chief elder didn't seem too old. Even if his sideburns were white and there were wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, they still couldn't hide his elegant demeanor. When he was young, he was absolutely a handsome man. At this time, he took a sip of tea, his eyes light. How is the monitoring situation? Below, the purple-robed cultivator knelt to the ground. He respectfully said, reporting to the chief elder, we have intercepted all of the messages that have been transmitted from the sect. Although there are many mentions of the monster-raising mystic art, there isn't anything suspicious about it. You reminded us to focus on monitoring several areas. Although there were several abnormalities, after investigation, we found that they had nothing to do with the monster-raising mystic art. The chief elder had a thoughtful look. What about Yao Bin's residence? The purple-robed cultivator said, after Grandmaster Yao exchanged for the high-level monster beast soul and blood, he has been in seclusion. Besides summoning several prisoners from the dungeon to conduct experiments, he hasn't contacted anyone else. I have already monitored Su Sheng. His behavior is normal and there isn't anything wrong with him. He paused for a moment and continued to say, because you ordered me to pay extra attention, I thought of a way to obtain a batch of trash from Grandmaster Yao's alchemy room. In this batch of trash that should have been incinerated, I found several waste pills. After inspecting them, I found that they indeed contained the 4 types of high-level monster beast soul and blood that Grandmaster Yao exchanged for. The chief elder frowned. I understand. Go and do what you need to. Remember, do not relax your monitoring. If you discover anything abnormal, immediately report back to me. Yes, Chief Elder. The Black Demon Sect cultivator bowed and quickly left. The Chief Elder laid down his teacup. He paced back and forth several times and said in a low voice, Yao Bin. I don't know why, but I always feel that there is something wrong with you. In the blink of an eye, another half-year passed. Grandmaster Yao purchased spirit plant materials. Not only did he pay a high price, but the quality of the pills he delivered were all top-quality goods. This caused the entire Black Demon Sect to praise him without end. There were several times when elder-level masters of the sect came to ask Grandmaster Yao for help. Although they didn't know exactly what pills they refined, they could guess the result just by looking at how the elders praised Grandmaster Yao without end. Nowadays, the Black Demon Sect's alchemy Grandmaster Yao Bin had an illustrious reputation. On this day, a yellow-faced and stout cultivator arrived at the entrance of the Black Demon Sect. He took out a token for inspection. Grandmaster Yao's token. Several guard cultivators immediately smiled. After asking a few questions, they directly let him pass. This cultivator entered the Black Demon Sect. After leaving the line of sight of the guards, his eyes flashed with a bit of joy. It seemed that His Highness hadn't encountered any trouble during this time and his status had even risen. This person was the one who had left for half a year to purchase high-level monster beast souls and blood, Tuba. A moment later, Tuba arrived in front of Qin Yu. His bones crackled and popped and he soon restored himself to his original appearance. An invisible and fierce aura swept out, causing the excited Tutu in a corner of the hall to hoarsely cry out, Tuba, you broke through. Because of the mysterious purple moon above his soul, Qin Yu's divine sense was extremely sharp. He could sense the terrifying blood energy fluctuations coming from Tuba's body. The current Tuba was several times stronger than before. If he erupted with his full strength, he might even be able to contend with a revered blue sea. Tuba greets your highness. Tuba fell to one knee and bowed his head, respectfully bowing. Qin Yu smiled. Tuba, congratulations. He was indeed happy. Although he knew that Tuba and Tutu would no longer be suppressed after leaving the infinite realm, and with their talent they would quickly grow stronger, Tuba's speed of growth still surpassed Qin Yu's expectations. Although the Titan race only cultivated the mortal body, it was because of their single-mindedness that they were even more terrifying. Even his undying true demon body might not be able to compare with Tuba's. Tutu anxiously said, Tuba, how did you break through? Tell me. He had also been stuck at this bottleneck for many years. Now that he saw someone from his race make a breakthrough, how could he not be worried? Tuba was silent for a moment. He said, when I was fighting with others, I experienced life or death dangers. In that desperate situation, my potential was stimulated and I was able to take this step. So, Tutu, I cannot pass on anything to you. Tutu had a disappointed expression, but there was admiration in his eyes. Tuba, you were able to make a breakthrough under the suppression of your enemies. This means that your enemies were absolutely terrifying. It wasn't easy for you to survive. If it were me, I might have already died. Tuba smiled, not saying anything. Even though what Tutu said was correct. Qin Yu earnestly said, Tuba, you've worked hard these past 6 months. I cannot guarantee you anything, but as long as I have the ability, I will definitely save your people. Tuba was overjoyed. He repeatedly kowtowed. Thank you, Your Highness. Thank you, Your Highness. Tutu also knelt down, his face filled with joy. All right, you can all rise. Qin Yu revealed a solemn expression. Tuba, where are the souls and blood? Tuba suppressed the excitement in his heart. He took out a storage ring from his chest. Your Highness, 6 types of high-level monster and beast soul blood cost a total of 194 million spirit stones. They are all in here. Qin Yu took the ring and probed it with his divine sense. After several breaths of time, he nodded with satisfaction. Very good, these souls and blood all meet the requirements. He stood up. I will immediately go into seclusion. Guard the hall well and do not allow anyone to disturb me. Yes, Your Highness. Qin Yu entered the training chamber and activated all the array formations. After thinking for a moment, he took out the 9th province furnace and had it isolate the aura of the outside world. The monster-raising mystic art was mysterious and formidable. In the process of raising the purple-back blue-wing ants, one needed to summon the immortal remnant soul of the ancestral monster. Who knew what sort of commotion this would cause? It was always better to be cautious. Chapter 429. Qin Yu's eyes lit up with excitement. He flipped his hand and 10 jade bottles appeared. Each jade bottle was the same size and mysterious runes flowed on their surface. These were specially refined items used to seal the monster beast soul and blood within the bottles. Looking down, one could see the dark red monster beast blood essence within the bottles, as well as the monster beast soul floating above the blood essence. This blood was refined from the body of a monster beast, the essence of its flesh and blood. This soul was a complete monster beast soul without any damage at all. To refine a complete monster beast soul and blood was astonishingly difficult and also required an incredible amount of luck. It was because of this that the price was so high. In order to gather these 10 portions of soul and blood, Qin Yu had gone to great lengths and Tuba had experienced countless life or death trials. It had to be known that everyone kept a close eye on good things. If you obtained it, there would surely be others who coveted it. However, all of this was worth it in the end. As long as the purple-back blue-wing ants completed the first level of cultivation, they would possess a formidable strength. Qin Yu revealed a solemn expression. He lifted a hand and the 10 jade bottles flew up at the same time. He formed a law formula and the runes on the jade bottles began to tremble. Cracks began to appear on the surface of the jade bottles. Paw, the 10 jade bottles shattered at the same time. The soul and blood within were no longer suppressed. The monster beast souls immediately revealed looks of ecstasy. They reared their heads back and roared, flashing into the blood essence. In the next moment, 10 balls of blood essence exploded at the same time, expanding into 10 monster beast phantoms, each one emitting a powerful aura. Even though this was only the first stage of cultivation, the souls and blood that had the qualifications to be used were at least at the blue sea level, equal to a monster king. Although they only had the initial strength of a monster king, when 10 of them were placed together, it was still astonishing. The purple-back blue-wing ants emitted threatening buzzing sounds. Their eyes revealed a look of longing. After swallowing the cultivation pills, they instinctively knew that the monster beast phantoms in front of them were the key to their advancement. Qin Yu calmed them down with his divine sense. He took out the soul summoning bell and gently shook it. The 10 monster beast phantoms revealed looks of fear. They turned to flee, but at this time, an icy cold will descended upon them. Qin Yu's eyes brightened. He shook the bell even faster. Although he didn't make any sound, the monster beast phantoms became even more anxious. Suddenly, ripples appeared in the void. It was as if a pair of invisible hands came from the other side, grabbing the 2 sides and slowly pulling them apart. Therefore, through the hole that appeared, they could clearly see that on the other side was a boundless grassland. Amidst the green grass, there was a gray hare standing on the ground. Its short and thick legs were crossed in front of its chest as it arrogantly walked through the spatial passage. Its eyes were incomparably deep, like an unfathomable abyss, and it emitted the vicissitudes of time that had practically condensed into substance. Its gaze swept past the 10 fearsome demon beast phantoms, and their bodies suddenly stiffened as if they had been immobilized, and they were actually unable to move in the slightest. It didn't linger for too long. Its eyes swept around and fell onto Qin Yu. It was hard to describe what Qin Yu was feeling at this moment. He never imagined that the ancestral monster that was born between the heavens and earth and possessed the power to destroy the heavens and earth would actually form a connection with a hare. What he was even more unable to accept was that he actually felt terror from the bottom of his heart under this rabbit's indifferent gaze. He didn't dare arouse the slightest intention to resist, and he even had a terrifying feeling as if he'd been seen through and had no secrets left. After a moment of hesitation, Qin Yu cupped his hands together and bowed. Junior greets Lord Ancestral Monster. The hare's funny three-petal lips curled up, revealing a taunting expression. Judging a book by its cover, your temperament is still stuck at this stage. You really disappoint me. Its eyes flashed and it continued to say, moreover, I'm really curious. You haven't even recognized a master for the soul summoning bell, and yet you dare to summon a part of my soul. Do you want to die? Qin Yu's heart skipped a beat and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. But before he could ask anything, the hare closed its eyes and lightly said, since I have awakened, the process cannot be stopped. Let's see your good fortune. The 10 monster beast phantoms all cried out in pain. Their condensed bodies shattered, turning into countless tiny fragments that were sucked into the hare's body. The hare's fur immediately turned blood red. An inexplicable aura began to release from it. As the purple-back blue-wing ants smelled this aura, they instantly fell into a frenzy. They crazily flapped their wings. A connection was instantly formed between their auras and the hare's. Blood threads appeared from the hare's body and submerged into the purple-back blue-wing ants. An overbearing, tyrannical, cruel, and icy cold will. In the blink of an eye, the purple-back blue-wing ant's fragile consciousness collapsed. Qin Yu stuffily coughed and blood gushed out from his head. This was the will of the ancestral monster's remnant soul. Through the purple-back blue-wing ants, it descended a terrifying suppression. In that moment, Qin Yu was enlightened. If he couldn't resist the crushing will of the ancestral monster's remnant soul, then not only would his cultivation fail, but he would also be buried along with it. Damn it! Why didn't the monster-raising mystic art mention anything about the soul-summoning bell recognizing a master? Qin Yu only had time to roar out loud in his heart. Then, he couldn't divert any more of his attention. He could only mobilize all of his strength to resist the crushing will of the ancestral monster's remnant soul. The ancestral monster was the ancestor of all monsters born before the heavens and earth. Even a tiny fragment of its soul possessed unimaginable might. Beneath the crushing will of the ancestral monster, Qin Yu felt as if he had fallen into the turbulent undercurrents of the deep sea. If he wasn't careful, he would be crushed to pieces. Within Qin Yu's soul space, the phantom of a wild rabbit appeared. It looked at the purple crescent moon that hung above Qin Yu's soul, its eyes flashing with interest. This junior actually controls the lunar star art. No wonder I felt something was wrong with his aura. The wild rabbit grinned. But, just by relying on the lunar star art that isn't even at the basic level, he still can't resist the test of my will. What a pity for this junior. As if to confirm its words, just as its voice fell, several cracks appeared on the surface of Qin Yu's soul. Because of the pain, his entire soul violently trembled. The wild rabbit curled its lips. After sleeping for endless years, I thought I would be able to play with you for a bit longer after being awakened. I never thought it would be such a weak little fellow. It turned to leave. But at this time, the wild rabbit's complexion changed. It turned to look at the skies above Qin Yu's soul. Beside the purple crescent moon, the phantom of a blue sun had appeared. Purple moon and blue sun, their light intertwined and fused together, turning into a strange milky white. Beneath this light, the cracks on the surface of Qin Yu's soul began to regenerate at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the aura of his soul became much stronger. Sun Palace Secret Art. The wild rabbit's eyes widened and it instantly vanished. Then, it appeared in Qin Yu's Dantian Sea. Looking at the faintly formed blue sun in the skies above Five-Element Mountain within his Dantian Sea, it was silent for a long time. Then, it sighed with emotion. It looks like I've slept for far too long this time. Great Yin and Great Yang, these two super influences, have actually experienced some changes. Otherwise, how could their inheritance techniques appear in the same person's body at the same time? This boy is quite lucky. But, he doesn't seem to know the function of the Sun and Moon Palace's secret arts. He's only using their most basic functions. The wild rabbit thought for a moment and then sneered. His success this time can only be considered good luck, it can't be acknowledged at all. I naturally don't have any obligation to remind him. Moreover, cultivation always has to rely on one's own exploration, right? After an unknown period of time, Qin Yu's eyelids trembled and he struggled to open them. His eyes were dim and his expression was one of extreme weariness. The ancestral monster's remnant soul had already vanished. As he looked at the slumbering purple-back blue-wing ants, Qin Yu's lips pulled up in an ugly smile. He had finally made it through. Several times just now, he thought he had reached his limit. Luckily, his will didn't collapse in the end. With a flick of his sleeves, he received the purple-back blue-wing ants into the Imperial Spirit Bag. Then, he took out several black and red pills and swallowed them down, refining them with all his strength to restore himself. These pills were pills of the demonic path. They were refined from the flesh and blood of living beings and their essence. Although their medicinal efficacy was tyrannical, their effects were much better than those of spirit plant pills. 2 hours later, Qin Yu opened his eyes. There was still a bit of lingering fear in them. He had originally thought he had a 90% success rate, but he had nearly failed. The soul summoning bell recognizes a master. As he thought about what the monster race's remnant soul had said, Qin Yu's complexion darkened. This was clearly the most crucial step of the monster-raising mystic art, but he simply didn't know about it. Could it be that the monster-raising mystic art he obtained was also fake? But that couldn't be right. If it was fake, then how could he summon the ancestral monster's remnant soul? The greatest possibility was that the monster-raising mystic art in his hands wasn't complete, and there was a critical part missing. As Qin Yu thought of this, his mood worsened. At this time, there was a fluctuation in the Imperial Spirit Bag. The slumbering purple-back blue-wing ants had awakened. With a thought, the purple-back blue-wing ants flew out. Their appearance had greatly changed. Their wings had turned gray and white, and a gray shell had appeared over their fragile bodies. Their auras had clearly risen by several levels. But what caused Qin Yu's heart to sink was that beneath the crushing will of the ancestral monster, the purple-back blue-wing ants' consciousness seemed to have been erased. Now, they only obeyed his will. After losing their initiative, the purple-back blue-wing ants' abilities were greatly reduced. Qin Yu's complexion was cloudy and uncertain. He never imagined that after spending so much effort to complete the first step, he would obtain such a result. Suddenly, Qin Yu's complexion changed. He discovered that the purple-back blue-wing ants had formed a mysterious connection with some existence. Moreover, from this connection, it seemed as if the purple-back blue-wing ants were the supreme being. After a moment of hesitation, Qin Yu followed this connection and carefully probed it with his divine sense. Then, he felt a cruel soul filled with a destructive aura. This soul didn't seem to discover the arrival of Qin Yu's divine sense. At this time, it was in a deep slumber. As Qin Yu was surprised, information suddenly spread out from this cruel soul. Qin Yu was startled. But soon, he revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. After several breaths of time, Qin Yu opened his eyes, his face full of admiration. What a good giant monster sect. They actually divided the monster-raising mystic art into two. If it's the real one, then the fake one also hides the most crucial part of the real one. Chapter 430. It was only today that Qin Yu could be considered to have truly grasped the monster-raising mystic art. As for the soul summoning bell, it wasn't only used to summon the remnant soul of the ancestral monster. As a supreme treasure of the soul summoning bell could counterbalance the overwhelming will of the ancestral monster's remnant soul. Otherwise, as one continued to cultivate it, the ancestral monster's remnant soul would become stronger and stronger. At that point, no one would be able to withstand its will. Furthermore, the most important thing was that the soul summoning bell could disperse the undying will of the ancestral monster's remnant soul, allowing it to be truly absorbed. Otherwise, even if he managed to swallow it, the ancestral monster's remnant soul would condense once more, and the result would be that all of the purple-back blue-wing ants in his hands would die. Qin Yu's complexion was dignified. He was originally rejoicing that his soul cultivation wasn't weak, and in addition to his firm will, he was able to withstand the crushing will of the ancestral monster. But, he never imagined that this matter would lead to hidden dangers. The soul summoning bell's recognition process could not be delayed, and it had to be completed before the ancestral demons will condense once more. He closed his eyes and carefully read through the information regarding the soul summoning bell's recognition process. After a long time, he opened his eyes, a thoughtful look on his face. For the soul summoning bell to recognize a master was not a simple matter. The degree of difficulty far surpassed Qin Yu's expectations. In order to refine this treasure, one needed to build a soul-guiding altar with 36 different soul treasures. Then, by relying on this altar, one could summon a soul from another world. This kind of soul had no consciousness of its own, but it had the innate ability to fuse with all treasures. By inserting a wisp of one's divine sense into it and then using the soul of nothingness to fuse with it, the soul summoning bell could recognize a master. Moreover, summoning the soul of nothingness from a different world had an extremely high requirement on the summoner's soul cultivation. Just gathering the 36 soul treasures needed to construct the soul-leading altar was extremely difficult. For instance, ebony wood. Only in a land of extreme Yin and a massive number of departed souls would there be a small chance of it being born. In the eyes of soul cultivators, it was a supreme treasure. It could attract a massive number of departed souls, and every piece was priceless. For instance, the bitter mulberry flower. This was a supreme treasure that was born with the ability to condense the soul. It had an unimaginable ability to restore soul injuries. It was rumored that a 10,000-year-old bitter mulberry flower could even remold the soul. There was also the soul storage stone, soul origin water, ancient frost soul, etc. These things all had two things in common. One was that they were rare, and the other was that they were expensive. Although Qin Yu still had over 600 million spirit stones on hand, if he took them all out he might be able to use them. But the key point was that there were some treasures that you couldn't buy even if you wanted to. Qin Yu took a deep breath and carefully sensed the purple-back blue-wing ants. Indeed, he could feel the existence of the ancestral monster's will from them. Although it was extremely weak, it was still recovering. If nothing went wrong, it would take at most 4 months for it to recover. Unless he gave up on the purple-back blue-wing ants and chose another monster beast to raise, he would only have a short 4 months to resolve the matter of the soul summoning bell recognizing him as its master. Without further consideration, Qin Yu vetoed the option of abandoning the purple-back blue-wing ants. Disregarding how troublesome it would be to choose a new monster beast, just the early stages of training would require a massive investment. Not including the cultivation pills, the 10 types of high-level monster beast souls and blood were worth 300 million spirit stones. If it weren't for the Black Demon sect making such a great profit, then even if he obtained the monster-raising mystic art he wouldn't have been able to play around. In that case, he could only try his best to make the soul-summoning bell recognize him as its master within 4 months. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. The Black Demon sect also knew that the materials needed for the soul-summoning bell to recognize a master could only be collected elsewhere. After thinking for a moment, Qin Yu made his decision. He went into seclusion for another 10 days, doing nothing but refining pills and then purifying them with the little blue lamp. 10 days later, he handed over a massive number of pills to Tuba and Tutu. Qin Yu ordered them to continue purchasing spirit plant materials and announced that he was going into seclusion. The next day, Qin Yu changed his appearance. He borrowed the identity of one of Grandmaster Zhang's disciples and left the Black Demon sect. Of course, this real disciple had already fallen into a deep slumber after taking the pills. At the very least, it was impossible for him to wake up before Qin Yu returned. Zhao Empire, for Season City. The city was named after this city. The rumor said that in the distant past, there was a sect called the Four Seasons sect. The Four Seasons sect was originally an ordinary sect. But, it had once given birth to a peerless proud son of heaven. This person overcame all obstacles in his path and finally became an almighty being that suppressed an entire era. Although everything had been erased by time and the peerless powerhouse that illuminated the entire era had long since vanished without a trace, perhaps out of basic respect for powerhouses, the name of Four Seasons City was preserved. Even though it was located in the southern part of the Zhao Empire, the climate was still cold. Snowflakes fluttered down from the dark skies and a thick layer of snow had piled up on the ground, nearly submerging one's calves. As the wind and snow intertwined, a black-robed figure walked in from outside the towering Four Seasons city. As he walked through the snow, he didn't leave behind a single footprint. Compared to those beams of light that flew up and down from the skies, he seemed low-key and unremarkable. In such cold weather, even if a cultivator didn't fear the cold or the heat, no one was willing to stay outside for long. Whoosh, whoosh, another beam of light howled in from the distance. This group of travel-worn cultivators was led by a white-eyebrowed old man. His expression was dignified and there was worry in his eyes. He emitted a faint aura, like a dragon swimming in the deep sea. He was impressively a blue sea realm powerhouse. How is the mist doing? He turned and glanced at the speed car in the middle of the crowd. A tired maid carefully replied. Her voice was buried in the wind and snow, but looking at the increasingly gloomy complexion of the white-eyebrowed old man, it was clear the result wasn't good. Let's go. The group didn't stop. They howled into Four Seasons City. As for the figure that was slowly walking through the city gates, they didn't even spare half a glance at him. The Qin and Zhao empires were bitterly cold lands. Every year, there would only be a short period of time where the earth would recover. If it weren't for cultivators having their own methods to change the climate on a small scale, it would have been nearly impossible to survive here. It was because of this that the Qin and Zhao empires had fierce customs. Their cultivators acted in an overbearing and direct manner. It wasn't that they didn't have city defenses, but they were very lax. Of course, if anyone dared to cause trouble in the forbidden areas, they would soon taste the taste of the Zhao Empire's standard long spears. It seemed that it was rare to see someone obediently enter the city through the gates. Several soldiers guarding the gates had strange looks in their eyes. One of them teased, "You don't even dare to fly, just how low is your cultivation? Boy, I advise you to hurry back home and cultivate for a few more years. If you come out too early, it's easy to lose your life." In the villages of the Qin and Zhao empires, there were many young cultivators like this. Most of them held on to the dream of becoming a powerhouse and left their hometowns to wander the outside world. But what awaited them wasn't a good ending. But it was because of this that they continued to pour out in batches and batches that the Zhao Empire was constantly replenished with new blood, allowing this powerful empire to remain strong. So although this soldier was teasing, he had good intentions. "All right, speak less and stand guard obediently," the captain berated. The guards were a bit puzzled, but they all revealed resentful expressions and didn't say anything else. The black-robed figure didn't stop. He soon vanished into the wind and snow. The captain watched him leave. He furrowed his eyebrows and revealed a thoughtful expression. A subordinate said, "Captain, is there a problem with that person?" The captain shook his head. "I just feel that this person isn't normal. I can't say why, but he gives me a very terrifying feeling." The complexions of several subordinates changed. The captain was an old man who had retired from the front lines. He had survived hundreds of battles and his senses were incomparably accurate. If he could make the captain feel fear, then that black-robed person could likely crush all of them with a single hand. Humph. Let this be a reminder. Don't underestimate anyone. With our strength, we aren't even worth a fart in the eyes of a true master. The captain coldly snorted. Several subordinates hurriedly nodded, helplessly complaining in their hearts. They thought that a master like him had nothing better to do than keep a low profile. After entering Four Seasons City, the black-robed person casually chose an inn to stay in. He rented a small courtyard and sent the servant away. Then, he took out a token and opened the spell. As he stepped into the small courtyard, it was as warm as spring. Flowers and plants flourished in the courtyard and lotus flowers bloomed in a pool. The black robe was pulled down to reveal a young face. Although he wasn't too handsome, he was still pleasing to the eye. This young man was Qinyu. After he left the Black Demon sect, he spent several days hurrying on his way. He borrowed the strength of a transmission array to leave the range of influence of the Black Demon sect. The reason he chose Four Seasons City was because there were several famous auction houses here. If he wanted to find 36 different soul treasures, he naturally couldn't rely on his own strength. After resting and restoring his spirit and energy, Qinyu pushed open the door and left the small courtyard. Not too far away, he saw a group of cultivators hurrying towards him from the snowy skies. Qinyu moved to the side of the road. His eyes flashed. This group of cultivators was the group of people he met at the city gates not too long ago. Compared to before, the atmosphere of the group was even more somber. The white-browed old man's complexion was even gloomier than the sky. This caused the servant leading the way to pale with fright. He trembled in fear, afraid to make the least bit of sound. Both sides passed each other. Qinyu only glanced at them several times before turning and leaving. He wasn't in the mood to inquire about other people's matters. The pressure of searching for 36 different sold treasures had already left him gasping for breath. An hour later, Qinyu appeared in an extremely grand and magnificent auction house. On both sides of the entrance were 16 tall and burly men. They wore strange black trousers and shirts, and giant black glasses that were clipped to the bridge of their noses. All of them exuded a fierce aura. This should be a genuine barbarian. The power of blood and qi in his body was indeed very strong. Of course, compared to the titans like Tuba and Tutu, there was still a considerable disparity. In particular, after making a breakthrough, Tuba could likely overturn these 16 strong barbarians with a single hand. Of course, to order these 16 strong barbarians to guard the entrance, that was more than enough momentum. Moreover, those big fellows gave off a sense of deterrence as well as a sense of security. Qinyu stepped up the steps. The black jade stone platform was incomparably clean. Beneath the shining lights, it added a bit of grandeur to it. "Welcome, guest. May I ask what esteemed guest requires? 2 hours later, Qin Yu revealed a helpless expression. He stood at the entrance of the auction house. He hadn't found a single one of the 36 materials he needed. This caused a shadow to cover his heart. Chapter 431. The speedcar stopped at the entrance of the auction house. Several young cultivators and maids stood guard beside the car. The white-browed old man spoke a few words and then led his people through the entrance. For Season City was extremely large. To be able to meet them 3 times in a single day, this could only be explained by fate. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He was a bit curious about these people. However, curiosity was just curiosity. Qin Yu wasn't in the mood to care about anything else today. Just as he was about to leave, a cultivator chased after him from the main entrance. Fellow Daoist Ning, please wait a moment. This person was a steward of the auction house. Qin Yu had already used his spirit stone card to prove his purchasing power, so even though he spent a great deal of time and didn't purchase anything in the end, the steward still had a bright smile on his face. Qin Yu stopped. Stewardly, is there something you need? Stewardly handed over an invitation with both hands. Fellow Daoist Ning, my auction house will be holding a large-scale auction half a year from now. At that time, there might be items that fellow Daoist needs. If fellow Daoist Ning has time, please do come. Qin Yu bitterly smiled. Half a year, he simply couldn't make it in time. But this person had good intentions. He received the invitation and nodded. I will remember it. Thank you, Stewardly. Stewardly smiled and bid his farewells. Qin Yu flipped his hand and put away the jade slip. At this time, a group of cultivators walked out from the entrance. They were the white-browed old man and the others who had just entered. At this time, he squeezed out a smile. Brother Chai, you and I can be considered old friends of many years. I have already inquired about your auction house's stock of condensed incense pills, so why can't you trade them to us? Could it be that my price isn't high enough? Qin Yu had seen the cultivator surnamed Su just now. He was the auction house's steward and was responsible for daily affairs. After a moment of silence, he forced a smile and said, Brother Ning, why must you make things difficult for me? Can't you guess the reason? Grand Authority Chu's face is something that not only our auction house but everyone else has to respect. If Brother Ning really wants to save your niece, then convince your family to take out that treasure. Otherwise, that's all I have to say. I ask Brother Ning to forgive me. He cupped his hands together and left. Ning Yuntao's complexion paled. It really was Chu Taidu's doing in secret. But his eyes immediately lit up with sorrow. The treasure at home was simply too precious. Even if the old master spoke, there would still be a lot of resistance. Not to mention, with Big Brother in his current state, the possibility of taking it was not high. Taking a deep breath, he suppressed the pain in his heart and said in a deep voice, Let's go. The several cultivators of the Ning family followed behind, their faces filled with grief and indignation. Their Ning family could be considered extraordinary, but now they were being manipulated by this enemy and there was nothing they could do. Ning Yuntao immediately squeezed out a smile. Lin Ling, it's too cold outside. Close the window. Behind the window was a pale, bloodless face. Her brows were slightly furrowed, as if she was enduring pain. Uncle, don't run around for me anymore. Let's go home. Lingling. Ning Yuntao shouted in a low voice. He immediately softened his tone. There will be a way. There will definitely be a way. Don't worry. Uncle will not lie to you. Ning Liang hesitated for a moment and then nodded. Be a good girl and close the window. Your body cannot withstand the cold. Ning Yuntao clenched his fists, blue veins sticking out. As the dark-colored glass rose up, Ning Liang suddenly felt something. She looked up at the entrance of the auction house and saw a black-robed figure standing on the steps. In the wind and snow, his entire figure was blurry, making it hard to see clearly. Just what was this person doing? Ning Liang subconsciously thought this. Then, a wave of pain spread out from within her. She coughed and covered her mouth so that her uncle wouldn't be worried if he found out. She scattered the thoughts she had just now. On the steps, Qin Yu's heart shook. After he awakened his bloodline and cultivated his spirit eyes, his vision had reached an astonishing level. Even in the wind and snow, he could clearly see the woman's face behind the window. Although this woman was incomparably beautiful, it wasn't enough to shake Qin Yu's mind. What truly shocked him was that this woman's appearance was 70 to 80% similar to Ning Liang's. In addition, he had heard the words of the auction house's chief steward Chai just now. The white-browed old man's surname was Ning and the young woman in the car called him uncle. Naturally, her surname was also Ning. Her surname was Ning and she looked so similar to Ning Liang. If this was just a coincidence, then it was too much of a coincidence. Qin Yu regained his composure. The group of Ning family cultivators had long since disappeared, but he wasn't worried. Listening to the white-browed old man's words, they wouldn't be leaving Four Seasons City for some time. Since they were staying at the same inn, it would be easy to find them. After hesitating for a moment, Qin Yu didn't visit any other auction houses. Instead, he flew straight towards the inn. As the saying went, love the house and its crow. Towards this group of people that might be related to Ning Liang, Qin Yu could no longer regard them as passers-by. Now that they seemed to have encountered a problem, he couldn't sit idly by. After returning to the inn, he asked a young servant about the guests in the courtyard next door. They hadn't returned yet. It seemed that the Ning family was still trying something else. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He took out several spirit stones and said, I'm a bit curious about this group of guests. Can you help me inquire about why they came? The young servant's eyes brightened. He repeatedly thanked Qin Yu and received the spirit stones. He lowered his voice and said, Guest, you must have seen the young miss inside. She is truly a fairy-like beauty. If it were anything else, I really wouldn't dare to reveal the privacy of a guest. But this matter has already spread out, so there's no harm in telling you. Before this, a secret disciple of Grand Authority Chu came to the inn and publicly announced that he wanted them to exchange a treasure from their family for condensed incense pills. Through the young servant's words, Qin Yu gained a general understanding of the situation. To sum it up, it was simple. The Ning family's young miss was gravely ill and needed condensed incense pills to suppress her illness. This pill was created by Grand Authority Chu. Recently, he wanted a treasure from the Ning family, so he used this matter to threaten them and stop the supply of condensed incense pills. The young servant sighed. That pitiful Ning family's young miss. With such a weak body, she still had to travel a long distance to Four Seasons City to ask for medicine. But, it's clear that the two sides weren't able to come to an agreement. I reckon that the Ning family cultivators are looking everywhere for condensed incense pills right now. But, they didn't even think about it. Grand Authority Chu has already spoken, so who would dare to trade with them? After sending the young servant away, Qin Yu ordered a table of food and wine. He chose a seat near the window. Although it was snowing outside, it was actually as warm as spring inside the inn. The sky gradually darkened and the wind and snow became even greater. With the sound of a door opening, a group of Ning family cultivators arrived in the wind and snow. Perhaps it was because they were in a bad mood, but when they opened the door, they attracted many eyes. As they saw Ning Yuntao at the front, most of their eyes shrank. But there were also many people who looked at the quietly moving speed car with interest. Several young Ning family cultivators revealed angry expressions. Ning Yuntao shouted out loud, "Enough, don't cause trouble. Have the young servant bring the food and wine to our room." Soon, the Ning family group disappeared from the path leading to the living quarters. Several youths in the restaurant revealed disappointed expressions. "I heard that the Ning family's young miss is a true beauty. What a pity, she entered the inn and stayed in the speedcar. Beautiful women are unfortunate. If the Ning family isn't willing to part with a treasure, I fear it won't be long before even a beautiful woman turns to dust." Humph humph. If Grand Authority Chu asks, who dares to not give him face? The Ning family doesn't know how to appreciate favors. Not only will they send the life of a beautiful woman to ruin, but they will also offend Grand Authority Chu. This is simply unwise. That's enough. The Ning family flourished for a time in the past. If it weren't for that person committing a great taboo and having his cultivation crippled and being expelled from the demonic path, they would have already soared to the skies. I heard that that person has many old friends in the demonic path. Although we don't fear the Ning family, there is no need to provoke unnecessary trouble for ourselves. That's right. Let's drink, let's drink. Qin Yu calmly listened to this. His eyes flashed. He called over the young servant and paid the bill. Then, he stood up and walked towards the back courtyard. Although these youths were frivolous and their words were annoying, their words revealed some information that caused Qin Yu's suspicions to deepen. In the wind and snow, Qin Yu arrived in front of the residence. He hesitated for a moment and then knocked on the door. The door opened from within. The worried attendant's complexion changed and a cold intent flashed in his eyes. "Who are you?" Qin Yu cupped his hands across his chest. "I am Ning Qin, an alchemist. I heard that your family's young miss is seriously ill, so I came to recommend myself." This was the best method he could think of to approach the Ning family. With the Ning family's current mentality, they shouldn't refuse him. As he thought, the attendant's eyes brightened. But then, he immediately turned vigilant. "Are you really an alchemist?" Qin Yu smiled. "I guarantee I am. I wouldn't be so bored as to make fun of you all. Attendant, why haven't you brought the food and wine in yet?" Another young man walked over, scolding him in dissatisfaction. The attendant hurriedly cupped his hands across his chest. "Young master, this person claims to be an alchemist and wants to treat the young miss' illness." Zhong Yingming frowned. "You fool. Do you think just anyone can treat my cousin's condition? Hurry up and send him away." Qin Yu lightly said, "Hold on. If you don't try, how do you know it won't work?" Hearing this young man's voice, Zhong Yingming revealed a look of disgust. "Shut up. I want to see just where this lecher came from. He actually has evil intentions towards my cousin. Since you won't leave, don't blame me for being impolite." He lifted a hand and the aura of a fifth-level nascent soul erupted. For him to have such a cultivation at his age wasn't bad at all. But today, Zhong Yingming was blind and had chosen Qin Yu instead. Nascent soul, he could have chased him down many years ago. Bang! With a dull thud, Zhong Yingming was sent flying away in a distressed state, crashing into the courtyard. If it weren't for Qin Yu holding back, at least half of his bones would have been broken. The attendant was frightened. He instinctively wanted to attack Qin Yu, but as his eyes swept over him, he felt as if he had fallen into an icy lake and all the blood drained from his face. "Stop!" With a loud shout, Ning Yuntao's figure appeared. His eyes fell on Qin Yu and the pressure of a blue sea came crashing down, causing wind and snow to tumble backwards. Qin Yu's body relaxed and his black robes fluttered in the wind. He lightly said, "Fellow Daoist Ning, don't worry. I had no intention of harming them to begin with." His calm voice penetrated through the wind and snow, clearly spreading into everyone's ears. Ning Yuntao's complexion changed. He hesitated for a moment and his pressure scattered. He said, "Who are you and why did you attack my Ning family's juniors?" Qin Yu's expression was calm. "Let them explain themselves." Zhong Yingming screamed, "Uncle, he dared to attack me. I cannot let him off." He had a fierce expression. "Brat, do you know who I am? You're dead." You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.